What's up, guys? It's Kictor, and welcome to quite the special live stream. I have told everybody in my house, please don't come in here. Please don't come in here. This is a very important live stream to me because we are reading Heaven Official's Blessing, the series that basically started my whole channel. I originally started posting with Yuri on Ice content, just kind of like cosplay stuff, but it was Heaven Official's Blessing that really made me want to do YouTube full time, and that was the series that made me fall in love with Dan May, and I had already kind of been in the world of BL, obviously, but Dan May just completely opened my eyes to a whole other world, a whole new community full of incredible people like everyone here in the chat. And I see we have lots of some new faces, maybe some old lurkers, and lots of members as well. So I just want to say, if there is ever like a question that you want to get my attention with in the chat, if you put @Kictor, you might be seeing some people do that. On my end, it shows the message in like bright orange. So if there's something like really important that you want to ask or something fun or whatever, you just want to make sure I don't miss that message. If you put it in the @Kictor, it comes up orange on my end, just so you are aware. Let's see who we got here. We got Levsa and Nastya and Sugar Kiss and Crystal, Jessica, Galactic Moon, Coco Lil Bug, and oh my gosh, Emma, thank you so much giving us the chance to show off the art that Kate drew for us. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Emma, for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate that. There's lots of new people in the chat, so that's super exciting. Thank you, Emma. That's really, really generous of you. If you are a member of my channel, you can come to the Friday night at 7 p.m. PST Dan May game nights, and that is when we play games like not Pictionary, Gartic Phone, and Frantic Fanfic. It's kind of like Pictionary, but all the prompts are Dan May related. Like, all of them are about characters from Heaven Official's Blessing and Modao Zushu and Scumvillain across the series. And like last week, we were shipping Bowser and Chuaning together. Like, it's a really, really fun, I want to say cursed time. Everyone ends up pregnant at some point, but it's such a supportive community to come and hang out. And yeah, it's just really fun. It helps support my channel. Oh my goodness, whoa! Oh, I see. I still have this set for my Modao Zushu stream for Bishan. The Lolian animation's so little. Oh my god! Thank you so much, Quinn, for donating. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Quinn says, starting Tgcf on my birthday. Best gift ever. And you donated to me. Oh my god, happy birthday, Quinn. Thank you so much. Quinn, you're such an incredible person to have in the chat, and you've shared some of your incredible art with us. You're so talented. So I hope you have an incredible birthday. Oh my gosh. Stitch and I wish you a happy birthday for sure. I also see that DK Morgan has been a member for 37 months and said, so excited for Tgcf. Yes, me too. I finally can crack open. I got the deluxe version here. And also, I have not read the novel of Tgcf since it was properly edited and published. I had only read the fan translation, which I will say is an incredible fan translation. And it was the same people working on the fan translation as the published edition, so there shouldn't be too many discrepancies, but I'm excited to see what it's like, all nicely formatted and not like, you know, scrolling a Google Doc in my bed at like 3 a.m. having sleep paralysis dreams of White No Face. That is a true thing that happened to me. Hey, Kate. Hi, Esper Lady. Lots of people in the chat. It's awesome. A long time in the making. Yeah, exactly. I bought like 100 copies of the first edition of Tgcf and did a huge giveaway because it was so exciting when those first came out. And now we have the deluxe edition, and soon we're also getting like the deluxe box set for Scumvillain, and the Modao Zushu's have gotten like, man, it's just been such a win for Dan May books over the last couple years, you know? With Modao Zushu had the comic come out. Unfortunately, the TGCF manhwa seems to be on pause, which sucks because that was like such an amazing source of content. You know, like getting updates for that weekly was incredible. It was so inspiring and stuff. So I hope that that comes back soon. Sienna says the past 2 days have been an ordeal. Ooh, how come? How come? Beboop. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Beboop. Holy shit. Are you... Beboop just sent 50 memberships. Holy shit. Oh my gosh. Okay, I am so lucky. Beboop, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, are you freaking kidding me? I was just thinking like, oh, you know, there's lots of new people in the chat. Like there's usually the people that come to the chats are the members, and the chat looks very green with all the membership usernames, but that has changed and everybody is green once again. Oh my gosh. Beboop, that's incredible. Thank you so much. That is so generous of you. I appreciate that so much. I can't believe you. And Emmy also just sent 5 memberships. Oh my god, Emmy. Thank you so much. Beboop, I just wish I could just just glomp you. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. That is so generous of you. That is incredible. It is such a huge help to my channel. Like, the memberships are what really, like, you know, are the main source of income because the AdSense on this Yaoi stuff isn't so high. So it really is my membership that allows me to do this full time. So thank you so much for that. I just appreciate that. And anybody who has decided to become a member, just please know how much it means to me. Seriously, that's just so kind of you. And we will have fun on Friday. Rebecca Green has been a member for 18 months. Thank you so much, Rebecca. I'm so excited I've finally been able to make it to a stream. I just got out of the hospital. Oh my gosh, I'm glad that you're out. So this is definitely going to make me feel better. Thanks. Oh, yeah, I wish I could give you a big hug too. I'm glad that you're out of the hospital and feeling better. Meridia says, I think people forget how not safe for work the first flashback is in TGCF. Not for sexy reasons, but for gore and death reasons. It's probably really hard for the animation team to adapt it. Yeah, you know, censorship, there's censorship for the fun stuff, but also censorship for, like, the gore stuff. TGCF definitely has a lot of fucked up shit in it. Like, it's so funny. We'll be reading these Danmei books, and then once you kind of put the source material aside and you enter all the fandom stuff, you focus on the romance most of the time. You're thinking of the happy times. You're not thinking of the blood and gore times, which almost all of these Danmeis have. Ryan says, I'm looking for the gays. Is this where they be at? The gays are here. The gays are all around us. The gays are in the chat, and the gays are in the pages. Absolutely. This is where the gays be at. Sandy says TGCF gets super dark, but it is necessary for the journey. Absolutely. Absolutely. Lizanator says, I finally made it to a stream after 2 years subbed. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for subscribing for over 2 years ago. I really appreciate that. And yeah, excited to be doing this live with you guys. Truffle says, I think TGCF and Husky and his White Cat Shizen are the highest in gore. Yeah, unfortunately, I've become a little desensitized to certain types of gore. There is one scene in Ballad of Sword and Wine that I think tops everything in gore and just awfulness. Black and Green Tea said, I had a borderline anxiety attack reading the Blackwater arc. Hey, that's what's great about reading this together. We will have an anxiety attack as one. They can't get us all. Annika says, the donkey scene? Yes, unfortunately, the donkey scene. Donkeys do not have it easy in Danmei. They're either being ridden by Wei Wuxian I'm not even gonna mention what happens in Battle of Sword and Wine, or being turned into sandwiches in Thousand Autumns. Hey, cats, cows. Wizard of Moss says Kaleidoscope of Death has so much blood too. Yes. Oh my gosh. I remember the live action of that got leaked a little while back, right? Anybody else been seeing that, like, I know it's, everybody gets fooled by this. It's like, why have any hope? But the live action for Arha, it's like people are talking about it again because the actors kind of posted some pictures that are hinting to playing Chuaning and Moran. Ah, the copium. I be huffing it, I'll tell you that much. Ooh, lots of people will. Let's see. Kate says the weirdest scene I've read in a Danmei outside of Meat Bun is the monkey people in Thousand Autumns. Yeah, what the fuck? Listen, monkey people scare me. I think that was a little bit fucked up. And then they don't ever bring it up again. Dr. Mango Sprout has been a member for 14 months and says, "Hi, so happy to be here. The last time I read TGCF, it was the machine translation and it constantly felt like I was on the verge of having an aneurysm." Yeah, oh my gosh. No, we got this. We got the beautifully published and edited version, and it's gonna be absolutely wonderful. Kate says, "I don't like creatures that are mostly human but not human." Yes, the uncanny valley. It's like a little bit off. Jessica says, "I'm glad to replace my memories of reading TGCF through the streams. I read it at a bad point in my life, and I think because of that, I never enjoyed it as much as I should." Hey, well now we'll be reading it together and we'll make it a good memory. I'm so happy to read it with everyone because it's definitely getting to the point where I'm starting to forget shit. Like, big time. Wizard of Moss says, "I'm thinking of getting a cosplay from Doki Doki Cos. Any suggestions?" Oh, nice. And Silver Witch, thank you so much for joining my membership. Thank you so much for welcome to the Ghost Flames. Thank you. That is so kind of you. Wizard of Moss, dude, Doki Doki's cosplay stuff is really nice. They have like a rating scale. If it's like, you know, like rare cards, it's like SR, SSR, SSR, or whatever, and that's like how nice the cosplay will be. The higher the rating, truly the higher quality the cosplay is. I think I have Hua Chung's second season Donghua cosplay from Doki Doki, and it's really nice. And I have like the very base Shalian cosplay from there, and it's like pretty nice. But yeah, they go up in level and fanciness and price. Sharuvia says Indigo, which is like Canada's Barnes & Noble, is having a manga sale from January 2nd to 4th. Oh yes, I know, and I just bought Stitch so much manga for Christmas. Oh my gosh, we missed out on the sale, but that's okay. It could be a good time to buy all of the Murazushi manhwa, because I want to definitely collect all of those. It was like the one Danmei thing I hadn't been purchasing when they were coming out. Quinn Silva, thank you for donating. It says, "TGCF was the first Danmei that I read and watched, so it holds a special place in my heart. I even found your channel through your TGCF cosplay." Oh, no way, the cosplay, really? That's awesome. Thank you so much for donating. Yeah, TGCF has like the most specialist place in my heart. Kate says, "Do you think Danmei will count in that sale since they put it in the manga section?" That's a good question. It might be worth it to ask. Meridia said, "I think it's my ultimate dream to make my own fancy cosplay." Dude, you should do it. Start sewing right now. Stitch is in the other room. She's actually reading TGCF as well. But she was making a Witch Hat Atelier cosplay. She is amazing. I was just reminiscing on our Ranwan cosplays, because she made her Chuaning and it looks so good. I just threw together my Moran with like, we bought a black robe pretty much, and Stitch put like a little bit of a red trim on it. but it looks pretty good. And then I used the belt from like the female Blackwater cosplay from Doki Doki, I think. You know, you just throw shit together. You put on the beaded hat and no one can argue with you. Did Stitch have a wonton? Oh, Horror Girl, you saw the lip balm video. Oh my gosh. Damn, that is an old video. There's an old video of me and Stitch doing the, trying to guess the flavor of chapsticks, like the chapstick challenge, and you just end up like kissing the whole time. And we did it as Hualian. Oh my gosh. That's an old video. That's a great one. Asper Lady says my cousin made wontons this weekend and all I could think was it wonton. It wonton. Rose City Kimono says the lip balm flavor test was hilarious. Oh my god. Traveler Lizzie says I'm 90% sure that's how I found your channel too. I see you. I know who you are. I wanted to do that because I loved watching people do those videos too. So cute. So indulgent. Dai Lumi has entered the incense burner. Has joined Supreme. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. That is so, so kind of you. That is an incredible help to my channel. Thank you for joining the Supreme. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you. Esper Lady says, I still watch the Ranwan making wonton video sometimes. It was so funny. Oh, I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad you liked it. Reina says, luckily I found your channel by your summing Tgcf for your friend video. Because I have ADHD, at least I wanted to know the gist of it before I get into it. And it was the best decision ever. Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad. Yeah, that was a fun video. Summing up all 8 books? I can't believe we're going to read 8 books. CSCL says, found character through the Coley Does Things collab, so relatively new. Oh my god, I love Coley. I have been a fan of Coley's videos for years, I remember when she asked if we wanted to collab, I was like so starstruck. That was so awesome. Wizard of Moss says, I got a tiny raise at work, and they'll be moving me from part-time to full-time. Hey, that is very exciting. Congrats, dude. Orion's Belt says, I think I found your channel from the guessing stuff about Scum Villain video. Kinda recently, but I was deep in the Scum Villain trenches. Dude, I want to rewatch the videos of me guessing things because now that I have all the cursed knowledge, it's funny like to think back at a time I didn't have all the cursed knowledge. That's crazy. Bumblebees says, does TGCF have exclusive extras for any of the language editions? Oh, I don't think so. I think we just got all the extras. Sumo went ice skating for the first time today. Oh, Autumn Rain, thank you so much for donating. Thank you so much. I just finished my mythology class paper on TGCF this semester. Oh my god, that is amazing. You were there when I first got into the series, and I'm so happy I did. You and Stitch are truly remarkable and hilarious. Oh, that is so kind of you to say. I'm so glad that you think so. Thank you so much. Man, actually doing a paper on TGCF is so cool. I hope that you had fun making that, and I hope you get full grades. That is so, so, so awesome. I think the only time I ever wrote a paper on a character was like one time in high school. I think in my psychology class, I wrote about Loki. I wish I was into Danmei when I was in school. Like, there's so much you could psychoanalyze about these guys. Oh my goodness, Rose City Kimono, thank you so much for donating. An old video you did that I absolutely love was when you were cosplaying Shalian and trying to go dumpster diving. Yes, yes. Oh, Shalian making a cake for Hua Chung's birthday. I remember that video. Yeah, that was so funny. I did jump in that dumpster. Thank you so much for donating and sticking around all this time. Oh my gosh. Guy the Pirate Witch says down for Tom Hiddleston. I was a huge Tom Hiddleston fan. Oh my god. 1000%. Orion's Belt, thank you for donating. Says TGCF, thank goodness. See, it's Monday. Yeah. Wait, what's the saying gonna be? For Scum Villain, we had, what was it? I'm gonna scum. And for for Modao Zushi, we had Uncle Up. Oh, it was Sunday Scum Day. Now, what's the TGCF saying gonna be? It's Gaga time. It hurts. Ascend again. Just it hurts. It's Gaga time. Thank you, Quinn, for reminding us it's Gaga time. Okay, it's Gaga time. That's so funny. Gaga time. It's Gaga time in the chat. Is it time to laugh or cry? No, it is Gaga time. Oh my gosh. Gaga time. Gaga time. We ascend again on Monday. Kate, Mpreg time? That's a canon reference. I can't put it down. I can't put it down, Kate. The Wizard of Moss, Kate. I just hear that in the car. Oh, that kills people. Cream pie time is crazy. Oh my gosh. I know Kate said something good when there's a bunch of other messages in the chat just saying like, oh my god, Kate. Chastity Meatball Monday. Ooh, very good. It's like my Subway order. Can I get some chastity meatballs on that puppy? Sandy, thank you so much for donating. Oh my goodness. Sandy says, I just started a new crossover fanfic of TGCF and Modazushi and hope to publish it soon. Also, I've been rewatching your older TGCF content to prepare for the live reads. Thank you so much for doing this. Oh, I'm glad. Oh my gosh, rewatching my stuff. Thank you. And a crossover fic of TGCF and Modazushi. I feel like that goes so well because, like, in TGCF, we don't really get too much of a glance of, like, the normal people cultivator world, you know? It's like, there's regular people, everyone's dying and on fire, and then there are the gods. But there's, like, also the middle ground people. There's, like, the cultivators. Like, there's the sects and stuff. Like, what are those guys doing? Dai Lumi, thank you for donating. Says, we here to get a break from Arha Volume 9. Ooh, very nice, very nice. Hualian doing the heavy lifting as my comfort ship right now. Arha Volume 9, I think, is one of the saddest things I have maybe ever read. Ever. I bawled. Meridia says, which sect is Heaven's Eye from? Yeah, true. True. He's from Gusu. Everyone's dying and is on fire is a great description of several Danmei. Yeah, literally. Wizard of Moss says, you think 8 is bad and then 9 hits you with the sledgehammer. Yeah. 8 is like revolting and then 9 is just fucking sad. Neko Me says, Hualian adopting Wei Ying is one of my favorite crossover tropes. Aw, that is cute. That is so cute. Ryan's Belt says, I've been starting Beauty's Blade to try and finish before the year ends. I like that these girls are kind of Wongshin. Yeah, right? We thought the same thing. They were cute. They were cute. CSL says, sadly, it's really hard to fit Scum Villain into the crossover. It doesn't quite fit as well. Yeah, it's like Scum Villain is its own weird little pocket universe. It's like, maybe... like, the TGCF world and the Modazushi world can coexist, but to get into the Scum Villain world, it's like you have to enter some sort of, like, fuck-ass portal or something. Like, you go into the Cold Springs, and you come out in the Scum Villain world. Meridia said, I just came across 2 crazy crossover ship fics, Pei Ming and Zheng Cheng. Interesting. Sometimes a tsundere needs a dumb, strong man to take care of him. And Mu Qing and Wen Ning. Oh! They're both hard workers. Mu Qing's got all the personality in that. Damn, that is an interesting ship. Okay. Jessica says, I'm reading Arha Book 6. I've never read the official before, and Moran said next time they'll do it for real. I am now deeply concerned for the possible bad events to come before then. Yeah. I shan't say any more, but it's quite bad. Oh. Sharuvia says, I think I've read a few stories that has Wei Ying crossing over a portal into the burial mounds into the scum villain world. Yeah, that's where he was for the 13 years or whatever he was gone. He was just in the scum villain world. Lunar Sky says, I saw a Lu Qingge x Pei Ming fic before. Oh, okay. I mean, Lu Qingge and Zheng Cheng, a little bit similar. Not the same, not exact same, but you know. They're both kind of outside the romance story, but have like strong connections to the protagonist, and you know, kind of look the same, I think. Why have feelings when you can break something? That's funny. I'm just trying to make connections. It's the beauty of fandom, though, isn't it? Isn't it just? Jessica says, like, damn, universe, let my man put it in. Oh my gosh. Okay. No cheating. No cheating. Do any TGCF super fans know what the very first word of TGCF is? What is the very first word? I don't remember. Don't look. If you have the book with you, don't look. I'll know you're cheating. Is it the? Is it the? Is it drawn all perfect the way SpongeBob does? In the beginning. In the beginning, it, the, gaga, he, in. Something about heaven shaking. There. Okay. Okay, I'm opening up the book. Let's see. We've got this beautiful cover. Inside, we have this beautiful painting. Got some white no face. We got, this is a freaking like Wu Ming's mask. Got the lanterns. Okay. And we have this adorable interior little drawing of them at Poochie Shrine together. Okay. Heaven Official's Blessing, Book 1, Chapter 1. Oh, no one was right. You know what it is? Among Us. Among Us. This is the prologue. The prologue. Okay. I will ask what the first word of the first official chapter is when we get to it. Okay. Prologue. Among all the deities of heaven, there was one famous laughingstock of the 3 realms. Legend has it that 800 years ago, there was an ancient kingdom in the Central Plains called the Kingdom of Shanle. The Kingdom of Shanle was a vast and bountiful land. There were 4 treasures within it, abundant and handsome beauties, vibrant music, and marvelous literature, gold and gems, and their one infamous crown prince. What would be the best way to describe this crown prince? Well, He was a unique man. He was beloved by the king and the queen, and they doted upon him exorbitantly. They would often say with pride, "My son will become a great ruler in the future, and his good name will echo down through history." However, the crown prince was not interested in imperial power or wealth in the mortal world at all. What he was interested in his own words, was, "I want to save the common people." When he was young, the crown prince focused solely on his cultivation, and there were 2 short tales that were widely spread of his time on that path. Sugarkiss says, "I just realized all 3 books start with dissing the main characters." Yeah, that's right. Oh my gosh. The first tale took place when he was 17 years old. That year, there was a grand Shangyuan heavenly ceremonial procession in the kingdom of Shanle. Although the custom of conducting these divine ceremonies has been out of fashion for centuries, it is still possible to deduce what a grand, jubilant occasion it must have been from remnants of ancient books and oral tradition. The wondrous Shangyuan festival upon the grand avenue of divine might. Seas of people gathered on either side of the grand street, with royals and nobles talking and laughing in merriment atop the high platforms. The glorious royal warriors, bedecked in armor, opened the paths, while maidens danced elegantly, their fair hands scattering flowers, and who could say whether the flowers or the maidens were more beautiful? From within the golden carriage came marvelous music that drifted across the entire imperial city, and at the rear of the procession was a grand stage pulled by 16 white horses in golden bridles. That is a lot of horses. Holy shit. That's a lot of horses. Sorry, that might be the most incredible part of the story. Upon this towering grand stage stood the god-pleasing warrior, the focus of everyone's attention. At the heavenly ceremonial procession, the god-pleasing warrior wore a golden mask. Dressed in glamorous attire and with a sacred sword in hand, he played the role of the subduer of evil, the #1 martial god for the past 1,000 years, the heavenly emperor, Junwu. He's playing the role of Junwu. When he's got that mask on, this is like, I am the heavenly emperor right now. My. It was the greatest of honors to be chosen for the role of the god-pleasing warrior, which was why the selection criteria were exceedingly strict. Thus, the one chosen that year was that crown prince. People across the kingdom believed that he would give the most thrilling performance as the god-pleasing warrior. However, an accident happened that day. During the 3rd tour of the procession, it passed by a city wall that was hundreds of meters tall. At the time, the martial god upon the grand stage was just about to strike the demon down. It was the climax of the performance, with people on both sides of the street at the height of excitement. The top of the city wall swarmed with crowds clamoring to watch the show, pushing and shoving each other to get the best view. At that moment, a small child fell from the edge of the wall. The screams of the crowd reached to the heavens. Just when everyone thought this child would stain the grand avenue of divine might with blood, the crown prince looked up, leapt into flight, and caught the boy. The people only saw a glimpse of a white silhouette that flew like a soaring bird before the crown prince landed with that small child in his arms. The golden mask fell, revealing the young, handsome face behind it. In the next second, cheers erupted. I also like the symbolism here of, like, he caught the child wearing the mask of the emperor, but actually, like, catching the child, the mask of the emperor fell. And it's like, Shalian, the crown prince, caught him. Not even dressed as the emperor. It's like that mask disappeared. It was fully him that did it. Which is a little symbolic, I think. The people were thrilled and joyous, but the state preceptors of the Royal Cultivation Hall were troubled. They had never imagined such a huge mishap would occur. This was ominous luck, the gravest of misfortunes. Every trip the grand stage made around the imperial capital symbolized 1 year of peace and harmony within the kingdom. Uh-oh. Now that it was cut short, did that not mean the invitation of disaster? The Sate preceptors were so distraught they were losing hair as fast as the rain fell. After much contemplation, they called the crown prince over to speak to him. In the softest manner possible, they requested, "Your Highness, might you be willing to face the wall in reflection for a month? It does not really need to be a month, as long as the intention is there." The crown prince smiled. "No." This was what he said. "There is nothing wrong with saving people. Why would the heavens condemn me for doing the right thing?" But what if the heavens do condemn you?" "Then it is the heavens who are wrong. Why would I apologize to those who are wrong?" Oh, he is so sassy. He's so sassy when he's on his righteous shit, you know? It's like, well, then him so confidently saying, "Well, then heaven is wrong," is so hot. Oh my God. The State Preceptor could not argue. This crown prince was such a person. He had never encountered anything he could not do, nor had he ever met anyone who did not love him. He was the justice of the mortal realm, the center of the world. Although the State Preceptors were frustrated, what the heck do you know? It was not their place to say much, and they did not dare say more on the subject either. His Highness would not have listened anyways. Then there's a little paragraph break. The second tale took place in the same year, when the crown prince was 17. Legend has it that, south of the Yellow River, there was a bridge called Yin Yan. And then there's a footnote and says, it means one thought or fleeting thought. This is also the first half of the idiom, wrong decision made in a moment of weakness. Okay. Upon this bridge was a ghost that had been lingering for years. This ghost was exceedingly fearsome. It was clad in broken armor. The flames of hell blazed beneath its feet, and its body was covered in it's covered in blood and pierced by all manner of sharp weapons. Every step it took, it left behind a footprint of blood and fire. Every few years, it would suddenly appear at night and wander back and forth at the head of the bridge, blocking travelers to ask them 3 questions. What is this place? Who am I? What is to be done? The ghost would then devour whoever answered incorrectly. However, no one knew what the correct answers were. As the years went by, this ghost devoured countless travelers. During his ascetic travel, the crown prince caught word of this, so he set out and found Yin Yan Bridge and stood guard there night after night, until finally, one night, he met the haunting ghost. When that ghost appeared, it was indeed as horrifying as the legend said. It asked the crown prince the first question, and he answered with a smile. This place is the human world. However, the ghost replied, this place is the abyss. An auspicious start. The first answer was already incorrect. Well, all 3 answers are going to be wrong anyways, the crown prince thought, so why should I wait till you're done? And so he pulled out his weapon and lunged. I love that. Let's just speed this shit up. The fight was complete chaos. The crown prince was skilled in martial arts, but the ghost was terrifying and dauntless. Man and ghost fought so hard that the sun and moon began to topple. In the end, the ghost was finally defeated. After the ghost vanished, the crown prince planted a flowering tree at the head of the bridge. As he did so, a cultivator passed by and happened to see him sprinkle a handful of dirt to consecrate the grave and send the ghost off. What is this? He asked. And thus the crown prince replied with his now famous line, body in the abyss, heart in paradise. When the cultivator heard this, he gave a light smile. He then transformed into a divine warrior clad in white armor with auspicious clouds beneath his feet. Then he drew in the wind and rode off in holy light. Only then did the crown prince realize that he had just encountered the heavenly emperor who had personally descended to the mortal realm to subdue evil. Damn, okay. Body in the abyss, heart in paradise. That's such a good line. Right off the bat, we're like, what, couple pages in? It's like, living on earth is hell, but your heart, keep your heart in paradise. People asking about spoilers. I think it's impossible to completely avoid all spoilers since this channel is so focused around Tgcf, but we should try and keep an effort to focus on the text at hand. I think that will be the most fun. But if someone does say something that's super, like, spoilery, you can give a gentle reminder. Let's not, make anybody feel bad. But because it's very exciting and sometimes it's hard to not jump ahead. So let's try and focus on only what we've read so far. The deities had already taken notice of this exceedingly outstanding god-pleasing warrior since his time in the Shangwan Heavenly Ceremonial Procession. After the meeting at Yin-Yan Bridge, they asked the Heavenly Emperor, "How does my lord find this royal highness?" The Emperor answered, "This child's future is infinite." That night, a celestial phenomenon manifested in the skies above the palace, and storms raged. I love that. He's like, How do you find me? Your future is infinite. Like, holy shit. Amidst the flashes of lightning and the roars of thunder, the crown prince ascended. Whenever a mortal ascended, the heavenly realm always shook. When the crown prince ascended, the entire heavenly realm quaked outright with 3 times the normal tremors. Achieving fruitful cultivation was always far too difficult. It required talent, training, and luck. It was often a long road of 100 years for a god to be born. It was not that there were no fortunate souls who became deities at a young age. However, the majority who tried exhausted their entire lives, trained for 100 years, and still had no heavenly tribulations dawn upon them. Even if they did come to face a heavenly tribulation, should they fail the trial, they would die, or be ruined, if they managed to survive. Those who made the attempt were as numerous as the sands of the Ganges, but most were simply ignorant mortals who would spend their entire lives as nothing more than ordinary, never finding their own paths. Yet this royal highness was no doubt the darling of the heavens. Whatever he wanted, he received. Whatever he wanted to do, he succeeded. He wanted to ascend to become a god, so at the age of 17, he did just that. It's interesting reading this, being a lot more well-versed in Chinese fiction. When I first read this, all the talk about ascending as a god and heavenly deities and tribulations, it was very confusing, and I didn't understand the weight of just how impressive this was for Xianlian to ascend at 17. Like, in every other Shansha, like, story that a lot of these danmei take place in, the characters that ascend are, like, 100-year-old beings, It's like, you have to cultivate your core. Like, the level he's at is, like, 9 billion times more powerful than Lan Like, to actually wrap your head around that and just how impressively, magically powerful Xianlian is nuts. 17? Like, that's crazy. He had always led the hearts of people, and the king and queen loved and missed him dearly. So, to honor their son, the king ordered great temples and shrines to be built across the land, and for statues of the crown prince to be erected and worshipped by all. The more believers that were amassed, the more temples were constructed. That meant the crown prince's life would be more prolonged, and his spiritual powers would grow more powerful. Thus, in a few short years, the Shanla palace of the crown prince became incomparably glorious, and for a time, its prosperity and splendor reached its peak. Yeah, there is a car alarm going off outside. Hopefully that's not too distracting. The car agrees, yes. Jessica says, do you think there's a chance it might be nepotism? Maybe. Briar May says, he's the strongest for some reason. Yep, he is. Yeah, the darling of the heavens. That must be another, like, turn of phrase, Because Shui Meng is referred to as the darling of the heavens. There we go. The car has stopped cheering. Okay, so that meant the crown prince's life would be more prolonged and his spiritual powers would grow more powerful. Thus, in a few short years, the Shanla Palace of the Crown Prince became incomparably glorious, and for a time, its prosperity and splendor reached its peak. Until 3 years later, when Shanla fell into chaos. The cause of the chaos was tyranny, with rebels rising in revolt. However, while the flames of war were set ablaze all over the mortal world, the deities of the heavenly realm could not easily intervene. Their concerns were ghosts, monsters, and demons that encroached on the borders, and whatever fell outside those parameters had to be left to its own devices. Think about it. Conflicts were everywhere in the mortal realm, and everyone believed they were justified. So if any god were to stick a foot in, today you would back your former kingdom, tomorrow another would avenge his descendants. Thus, would there not be gods who wanted to fight each other all the time, who would fall into a life of disgrace? That was why the Crown Prince needed to keep his distance, but he did not care for that reasoning in the least. He said to the Heavenly Emperor, "I will save the common people." The Heavenly Emperor possessed 1,000 years of divine power, but even he did not dare let those words hang off his lips. When he heard this, it was easy to imagine how he felt, yet he could not do anything to stop the Crown Prince. So he said, "You cannot save everyone." "I can," the Crown Prince declared. Thus he descended to the mortal realm without looking back. Naturally, the whole nation of Shanla rejoiced. However, ever since the ancient times, there had been one truth the people always spoke of in the human world. There would never be a good outcome when gods descended to the mortal realm without permission. And so, not only were the flames of war not extinguished, they blazed even wilder. It was not to say the Crown Prince did not try, but it would have been better had he not intervened at all. The harder he worked, the more of a mess the war became. The people of Shanla were devastatingly battered and crushed. The wounded and casualties were innumerable, and in the end, a plague swept through the entire imperial capital, and the rebel army broke through to the palace and ended the war. If it was said that Shanla was originally hanging on by a thread, then the Crown Prince came and cut it directly. Ooh. After the kingdom fell, the people finally came to realize one thing. The Crown Prince they worshipped as a god was never as perfect or strong as they imagined. To speak harshly, was he not just useless trash who could not do anything right? How dare you speak about my baby boy that way? Without anywhere to vent the anguish and pain of losing their homes and families, the battered people furiously poured into the palaces of the Crown Prince, toppled his divine statues, and burned down the divine temples. 8,000 temples burned for 7 days and 7 nights, burned until there was nothing left. From that moment on, the martial god who protected peace and safety vanished, and a god of misfortune who brought disasters was born. When the people call you a god, you are a god. If they call you crap, you are crap. You are whatever they say you are. It had always been thus. The Crown Prince could absolutely not accept this reality, and he had an even harder time accepting the punishment he received for his transgressions. Banishment. His spiritual powers were sealed, and he was knocked back down to the mortal realm. He'd grown up endlessly coddled and pampered. He had never tasted the suffering of the human world before, yet this punishment hurled him from the clouds down into the mud. And in this mud, for the first time, he understood the taste of hunger, poverty, and filth. This was also the first time that he did things he never thought he would do willingly. He stole, he robbed, he cursed loudly, and he gave up on himself. He lost all dignity, no self-esteem remained, and he was as unkempt as one could be. Even his most loyal servants could not accept this change in him and chose to leave. Body in the abyss, heart in paradise. This phrase had been engraved on stone monuments and plaques everywhere in Shanla. If not for the war that had burned almost all of the kingdom to the ground, if the Crown Prince were to see the remnants of those words, he would probably be the first to rush to destroy what was left. I do like that it's kind of, it's easy to say something like that when you have it good, right? The person who had said those words had personally proven that when the body was the abyss, the heart could not be in paradise. He ascended to the heavens quickly, but his fall from grace was even faster. That's a good line. That awe-inspiring impression at the grand avenue of divine might, the evil he met at Yin Yan Bridge, it all seemed as if it were only yesterday, and the heavenly realm merely sighed for a while before letting go of what was past. Until one day, Many years later, a huge rumble thundered from the sky. This royal highness ascended for the second time. Throughout history, heavenly officials who were banished either never regained their glory or fell into the ghost realm. It was rare to turn over a new leaf after banishment. The second ascension was truly grand and spectacular. What was even more spectacular was that, after he ascended, he charged all the way into the heavenly realm and rampaged in full fury. Thus, he had only been ascended for the span of one incense time before he was knocked back down again. Oh, damn. One incense time. It could be considered the swiftest and shortest ascension in history. If the first ascension could be considered a beautiful tale, then the second ascension was a farce. Having been banished twice, the heavenly realm looked upon this crown prince with full contempt. And in that contempt there was caution. After all, he was already threatening and on edge after the first banishment. Now that he had been banished twice, would he not go berserk and take his revenge on the world? Yet who knew? After being banished this time, he did not go berserk, and even adjusted earnestly to banished life. There were no issues at all, and the only problem was that maybe he was taking things a little too seriously. Sometimes he would busk at the end of the street, expertly playing an instrument and singing any songs, and even shattering boulders on his chest as part of his act. While there had long been word that this royal highness could sing and dance and was a master of many talents, it was unbelievable to witness all his talents in such a fashion, truly inspiring complicated feelings in anyone who saw. Sometimes he would diligently and humbly collect scraps. The deities were shocked to their cores. It was unthinkable that things would reach this point, where now, if one was to say, "The son you gave birth to is the crown prince of Shanla," it would be a curse more malicious than, "May you die without sons." He was once the noble and gracious crown prince, a heavenly official who was part of the divine ranks, but in truth, no one else had ever screwed up so badly. And so, this was the story of the man who was known as the laughingstock of the three realms. After laughing, those who were more sentimental might also sigh. The darling of the heavens, who once stood at such a height, had truly and thoroughly vanished. Divine statues collapsed, a native kingdom was destroyed, and not a single believer remained. Gradually, he was forgotten by the world. Thus, no one knew where he had drifted afterward. It was already a great shame to be banished once. No one would be able to get back up after being banished twice. Ooh, my gosh. Little paragraph break. Many more years passed. Suddenly, one day, there was another huge rumble in the sky. The heavens fell, and the earth cracked, the ground trembled, and the mountains shook. The lanterns of everlasting light shuddered, the firelights danced in fury, and all the heavenly officials inside their golden palaces jolted awake, every one of them running out to ask each other, "Which new dignitary has ascended? Such a grandiose entrance!" Yet who knew? They had exclaimed in wonder the first second, but in the next, all the deities of heaven were thunderstruck. "Weren't you done?" That infamous weirdo, the laughingstock of the three realms, the legendary royal highness, the crown prince. He fucking ascended again! Oh my gosh. That is so good. Man, I forgot how much the prologue set everything up, because a lot of this stuff doesn't happen until like the second book, you know? Damn. Oh man, that sets the scene so well. Spazzy says, did it actually say that? Yeah, word for word. He fucking ascended again. Now, we're on to chapter 1. And the first word is, congratulations, Your Highness. Hearing this, Shalian looked up, and he smiled before saying anything. Thank you, but can I ask what you're congratulating me for? Ling Wen Shenjun stood tall with her hands folded behind her back. Congratulations, you have won first place on the chart of heavenly official most hoped to be banished down to the mortal realm of this calendar cycle. Well, no matter what, first place is first place, Shalian said. But since you're congratulating me, is there anything that's actually worth being happy about? Yes, Ling Wen replied. First place on this chart receives 100 merits. Shalian immediately said, if there are any similar charts in the future, please absolutely call me up. Do you know who second place is? Ling Wen asked. Shalian pondered for a moment, then replied, that's too hard to guess. After all, in terms of ability, I should be able to take the first 3 places myself. Pretty much, Ling Wen said. There isn't a second place. You're so far ahead that you've left everyone in the dust. That's too great of an honor, Shalian replied. Then who was the first place for the previous calendar cycle? There is no previous winner, Ling Wen said, because this chart was first established today. Huh? Shalian was taken aback. You don't mean to say that this was a chart set up just for me? Ling Wen replied, you can think of it as, you just so happened to make it in time and just so happened to steal first place. Shalian grinned, his eyes squinting into crescents. All right, I'll be happier if I think of it that way. Do you know why you got first place? Ling Wen continued. By popular demand, Shalian guessed. Let me explain the reason to you, Ling Wen said. Please look at that bell. Shalian turned his head to gaze toward where she pointed, and what he saw was an extremely beautiful sight. There were grand palace temples made of white jade, abundant towers, pavilions, and gazebos, with heavenly clouds lingering about as streams flowed and birds danced. He took a good look for a while, then asked, did you perhaps point in the wrong direction? There's no bell anywhere. I didn't, Ling Wen said. It's right there, don't you see? Shalian looked again seriously, then answered honestly, I don't. Ling Wen replied, it's all right if you don't. There used to be a bell there, but when you ascended, it fell because of the tremors. ... That bell is older than you, but it has a spirited character and enjoys a good spectacle. Whenever someone ascends, it tolls a few times in applause. When you ascended, the tremors were so strong that the bell tolled like mad and couldn't stop at all. In the end, it shook itself off the bell tower before it finally ceased, and when it fell, it crashed down onto one of the heavenly officials passing by. Is everything better now? Shalian inquired. Not yet. It's still under repairs, Ling Wen replied. I meant that heavenly official who was hurt, Shalian clarified. The one it hit was a martial god, Ling Wen said. A flick of his hand and the bell was chopped in two, right then and there. Now, please look over at that golden palace. Do you see it? Again, Shalian looked to where she was pointing and saw amidst the haze of clouds the resplendent golden glazed roof. Ah, this time I see it. It's not right if you see it, Ling Wen said. There wasn't anything there before. ... When you ascended, the golden pillars of the golden palace of a number of heavenly officials collapsed from the tremors, and their glazed roof tiles shattered. There are some that won't be so easily fixed, so the heavenly officials could only put together some last-minute palaces to make do for the time being. And I'm the one responsible? You're the one responsible. Shalian asked to confirm. So I've offended many heavenly officials since the moment I arrived. If you make amends, maybe not, Ling Wen said. How do I make amends? Easy, with 8,880,000 merits. Shalian grinned again. Ling Wen added, Of course, I know you don't have even a tenth of that amount. Shalian replied earnestly, How do I say this? Even though I'm very sorry, if you want just a 10,000th of that amount, I don't have it. The faith of the mortal believers was converted into the spiritual power of a heavenly official. Every stick of incense they lit and every offering they gave were thus called merits. Shalian turned solemn in place of the smile and asked seriously, Are you willing to kick me down from here and give me 8,880,000 merits for it? I'm a civil god, Ling Wen said. If you're looking for someone to kick you down under, you'll need to find a martial god to do it. The harder they kick, the more merits they'll get. Shalian heaved a long sigh. Please allow me to think about what I should do. Ling Wen patted his shoulder. Don't worry, there'll always be a path when the carriage reaches the mountain. Boats always sink when they reach the pierhead for me, though, Shalian said. And there's a proverb that says, when the boat gets to the pierhead, it'll go straight with the current. It's a proverb that means everything will be all right. If this were 800 years ago, when the Palace of Shanla was at its peak of prominence, 8,880,000 merits would be nothing. The Crown Prince could throw it out without batting an eye. But the present wasn't the same as the past, and all his temples in the mortal realm had long since been burned to the ground. He had no believers, no incense, and no offerings. There was no need to say any more on the subject. Either way, he had nothing, absolutely nothing. I forgot how funny that exchange is with him and Ling Wen. They're like both little sarcastic little jabs, you know? It's cute. It's a little bit like stumbling into Music Room 3 and knocking over a vase. He crouched by himself on the side of the main street of the heavenly capital, feeling distraught for a while, before suddenly remembering. He'd ascended for almost 3 days now, but he still hadn't entered the communication array of the upper court. He'd forgotten to ask what the verbal password was. The heavenly officials for the upper court had gotten together and set up an array that could instantaneously allow the consciousness to communicate and pass on messages. Once ascended, one must enter the array, but a password was required for the consciousness to find the designated channel. The last time Shalian had entered the array was 800 years ago, so he didn't remember the password at all. He let his consciousness scatter to search and saw a channel that seemed to be what he was looking for, so he went in randomly. The moment he entered, he was blasted by an outpouring of crazed yelling from all directions. Place your bets and no takebacks. Let's wager on how long our royal crown prince can last before going down again. I bet 1 year. 1 year is too long. Last time it was only 1 incense time. It'll be 3 days this time, I think. I put my merits down on 3 days. 3 days. Don't, you dimwit. 3 days is almost over already. Do you even know how to gamble? Shalian silently exited the array. He'd entered the wrong one. That couldn't be it. The heavenly officials of the upper court of heaven were all bigwigs who guarded over a given region. They were widely known by every household and kept occupied by a myriad of state affairs. Since they were deities who ascended respectably, in keeping with their status, they were generally more reserved and often put on airs. Shalian himself had been the only one who dragged out every single heavenly official inside the communication array to greet them out of excitement for the first time he ascended, incomparably earnest and exceedingly thorough in introducing himself from head to toe. Oh, he went and shook hands with all the higher-ups. After he exited that array, he went on another random search and entered a different one. This time, he relaxed, thinking to himself, how quiet, it's probably this one. Just then, he heard a voice say softly, "So, your highness is back." It was a very comfortable voice, the sound soft and gentle, the tone decorous. However, if one were to listen closely, one would discover that the voice was quite cool and indifferent, the same as the sentiment it carried, causing that soft gentleness to turn into something more malicious in intent. Shalian had intended to enter the array in a proper manner, then lie low, but since the other party had already addressed him, he couldn't keep pretending to be deaf and mute. Besides, he was still delighted that there were actually heavenly officials in the upper court who would willingly start a conversation with a god of misfortune like him. Thus, he quickly answered, "Yeah! Hello, everyone. I'm back again." Oh my gosh. Yet little did he know, after this exchange, every single heavenly official who was currently inside the communication array perked up their ears. That heavenly official said languidly, "Your Highness certainly ascended with tremendous force this time, huh?" Within the upper court of heaven, emperors, kings, generals, and chancellors were everywhere, and heroes flowed like water. In order to become a deity, one must first achieve greatness. Within the mortal realm, those who had obtained accolades or ones in possession of great talent had always had a better chance of ascension, so it wasn't an exaggeration to say that rulers, princes, princesses, and generals weren't a rarity here. Everyone was a darling of the heavens. Everyone acted courteously with each other, so they would address each other as Your Majesty, Your Highness, Lord General, Alliance Chief, Head Chief, whatever, as long as the title was flattering. However, the words from this one heavenly official seemed to have something lurking beneath their tone. Although he said, "Your Highness this, Your Highness that," Shalian couldn't sense a bit of respect from him at all. It was more like he was poking him with a needle. There were also several heavenly officials inside the communication array who were authentic crown princes, and they were feeling the hairs on their backs rise from such an address, incredibly uncomfortable. Shalian could tell that this other party didn't come with good intentions, but he didn't want to fight, so he chose to run instead. He smiled. It wasn't too bad. However, that heavenly official wouldn't give him the chance to run. He said tepidly, "It's your highness, after all, so it wasn't too bad for you, but my luck doesn't seem to be as good." Suddenly, Shalian heard a private message from Ling Wen. She only said one word, "Bell." Instantly, Shalian understood. So this was the martial god who was hit by the bell! If that was the case, then the other party wasn't angry without reason. Shalian had always been adept at apologizing, so he immediately said, "I've heard about the accident with the bell, and I'm dreadfully sorry. I do apologize." The other party humphed, the meaning unclear. There were a great number of renowned martial gods in the heavenly realm, and many of them were newly ascended dignitaries who came after Shalian's time. Shalian couldn't be sure who this person was by voice alone, but he couldn't stay ignorant of his name after apologizing either. So Shalian inquired, "Might I ask how I may address my lord?" The other fell silent at this. Not only did the other fall silent, it was like the entire communication array froze and the air was assaulted with stagnation. From the other end, Ling Wen sent him another message. "Your Highness, although I think you should have recognized him after talking for so long, I still want to give you a hint. That's Xuan Zhen." "Xuan Zhen?" Shalian said. He was stumped for a moment before he finally came around, then sent a voice message back in shock. "That's Mooching?" Oh my gosh, it's so awkward. He was stumped for a moment. Oh, sorry. General Xuan Zhen was the martial god of the southwest who possessed 7,000 temples. His name in the human world was considerably distinguished, and this General Xuan Zhen's real name was Mu Qing. 800 years ago, he was a deputy general at the Shanla Palace of the Crown Prince. Ling Wen was also quite shocked. "You really didn't recognize him?" "I really didn't," Shalian replied. "He didn't talk to me like this back then. Besides, I can't even recall when we last met. It was either 5 or 6 centuries ago. I can barely remember what he looks like, so how can I possibly remember what his voice sounds like?" The communication array was still deep in silence. Mu Qing didn't utter a sound. The other heavenly officials were pretending they weren't listening while waiting on the edge of their seats for whichever one would continue the conversation. Things were rather awkward when it came to those two. The complicated plot had been spread in rumors for so many years, and everyone basically knew the story at this point. Back then, when Shalian was still the esteemed Crown Prince of Shanla, he trained at the Royal Holy Temple. This Royal Holy Temple was a royal cultivation hall in the Kingdom of Shanla, with a very strict standard for selecting disciples. Mu Qing came from the slums, and his father was an executed criminal. Someone like that didn't qualify for acceptance to the Royal Holy Temple, so he could only run errands. Within the temple grounds, he was someone who cleaned the Royal Highness's room and served tea and water. Shalian saw how hard he was working, so he requested that the state preceptors make an exception and accept Mu Qing as the disciple. It was only by the golden mouth of the Royal Highness that Mu Qing could enter the temple to cultivate and be trained alongside the Crown Prince. Then, after ascension, Shalian appointed him his general and took him along to the heavenly capital. However, when the kingdom of Shanla fell and Shalian was banished to the mortal world, Mu Qing didn't follow him. Not only did he not follow, he never even spoke a word in Shalian's favor. Either way, the Crown Prince was gone, so he was free. He found a cave on a piece of auspicious land and trained arduously, and not a few years later, he passed a heavenly tribulation and descended to heaven himself. In the past, one was in the heavens and one on earth. Now, there was still one in the heavens and one on earth. It was simply that their positions had switched completely. That's all. On this end, Ling Wen said, "He's very upset." "I figured as much," Shalian said. "I'll go start another topic of conversation. You'd best take the chance to leave," Ling Wen suggested. "Nah, it's okay," Shalian replied. "It's fine as long as we pretend nothing's happened." "Are you sure?" Ling Wen said. "I feel awkward just watching you two." "It's not that bad," Shalian replied. For someone like Shalian, everything besides death really was okay. He didn't have a lot, and certainly not shame. He had done much, much more awkward things, so he genuinely felt that this was okay. Yet who knew that okay wasn't a word to be uttered lightly? He had only just said, "It's okay," when a voice roared angrily. Who the fuck knocked down my golden palace? Show yourself! Oh my god. Man, Mooching's so fucking rude to him at the beginning. Truly, though, that's Mooching is so, like, savage without trying to be, you know? Who could this be? This angry roar was going to make the heads of all the gods explode. While they were already filled to the brim with surging complaints, still, each of them held their breaths, waiting soundlessly to hear how Shalian was going to answer the accusatory cry. Yet unexpectedly, things only got more exciting. Before Shalian had opened his mouth, Mooching spoke up first. Or rather, he only snorted. Heh! The newcomer spat coldly. You knocked it down? Good, just you wait. Mooching replied coolly. I didn't say it was me. Don't make false accusations. The other said angrily, Then what are you laughing about? Are you out of your mind? No reason. You just sound funny, that's all, Mooching said. The one who knocked down your golden palace is in the communication array right now. Go interrogate him yourself. With things reaching this point, Shalian was too embarrassed to run away just like that. He cleared his throat. It was me. I'm sorry. The moment he spoke, the one who came after also fell silent. Next to his ear, Ling Wen messaged him again. Your Highness, that's Nan Yang. This one I know, Shalian said, but it seems he doesn't recognize me. He does, Ling Wen confirmed. It's just that he spends most of his time roaming the mortal realm and rarely comes back to the heavenly capital. He didn't know you had ascended again, that's all. Nanyang Shenzhen was the martial god of the southeast. He possessed 8,000 temples and was incredibly loved by the people. His real name was Feng Xin, and 800 years ago he was the #1 heavenly general of the Shanla Palace of the Crown Prince. Feng Xin was loyal to a fault, and he had been Shalian's imperial bodyguard since the Crown Prince was 14 years old. He grew up with Shalian. They entered the heavens together, were banished together, and drifted together. Unfortunately, they couldn't endure all 800 years together. In the end, it was an unhappy separation, as each went their own way, never to meet again. It's so tragic. Oh, man. This is so juicy. Just in, like, the drama of all of these broken friendships. Oh, man. And this is happening right off the bat. Like, it's so good. The master of foregone days, fallen so low to be the laughing stock of the 3 realms with neither offerings, temples, nor believers. All the while, the 2 servants under him had both passed a heavenly tribulation and became great martial gods themselves who guarded their own domains. Under these circumstances, it was impossible for anyone not to think too much. If Shalian had chose between Feng Xin and Mooching and say who made him feel more awkward, he would answer, they're both fine. But if bystanders had to choose whether they wanted to see Shalian brawl with Feng Xin or Mooching, then that would depend on the individual's taste. After all 3 had sufficient reason to beat each other up, so it would be a hard pick. Which was why everyone was severely disappointed when Feng Xin did not respond for the longest time. He didn't say a single word and instead went invisible. And so Shalian concluded the scene on his own, beating himself up voluntarily. I didn't think things would get this out of hand. It wasn't intentional, and I do apologize to everyone for having caused trouble. Mooching replied sarcastically, Oh, what a coincidence. Coincidence? Shalian also thought this was quite the coincidence. How did he so coincidentally hit Mooching and wreck Feng Xin's palace? From any bystander's perspective, this was practically intentional revenge. But the truth was thus. He was just the type who could pick up the single poisoned cup in 1,000 cups of wine. It wasn't like one could do anything about what the others thought, so Shalian could only reply, I will do my utmost to compensate everyone for their golden palaces and any other damages. I pray you will all give me a little time. It didn't take any brains to see how obvious it was that Mooching wanted to keep making snide remarks, but his golden palace didn't suffer any damage, and the bell that fell on him was also chopped in 2. If he continued to be so overbearing, it'd be unseemly for someone of his status. Thus, he also fell silent and went invisible. When Shalian saw that the awful messes themselves were now gone, he quickly fled too. He was still pondering deeply and seriously on where he could go get his hands on 8,880,000 merits. The next day, Ling Wen invited him to the palace of Ling Wen. Ling Wen was a heavenly official who managed the affairs of celestial personnel and controlled the smooth sailing and rapid career promotion of humans. The entire palace was stacked full of official documents and scrolls from the ground to the ceiling, quite an astounding sight, enough to make one quake with fear. On the way over, every heavenly official who emerged from the palace of Ling Wen was holding stacks of documents that were taller than the average person. Their complexions were ghastly pale, looking either like they were breaking down or numb. After Shalian entered the great hall, Ling Wen turned around and got straight to the point. "Your Highness, the Heavenly Emperor has requested for you. Will you give him some assistance?" There were plenty of Shenjun and Yuanjun in the heavenly realm, but there was only one who could be addressed as Emperor. If this lord wanted something done, he needn't ask first, which was why Shalian was a little taken aback before he replied, "What is it?" Ling Wen handed him a scroll. "Recently, there have been a large number of grand believers from the north making frequent prayers, so I imagine things must not be peaceful there." The name Grand Believer usually referred to one of three types of people. The first type were the rich, those who paid for incense and religious services and built temples. The second type were missionaries, people who promoted the religion and gave sermons. The third type were believers who possessed absolute faith in both heart and body. Among the three, the first type dominated. The richer someone was, the more they feared and respected gods and ghosts, and there were as many rich people as there were fish in the sea. The third type was the least common, because if someone could genuinely reach that level, then their spiritual state must be exceptional, and they wouldn't be far from ascension themselves. That's kind of funny, hey? The ones spoken of here were obviously the first type. "The Heavenly Emperor cannot attend to the north right now," Ling Wen explained. "If you are willing to make a trip over on his behalf, then in the future, regardless of how many offerings these grand believers give as a gesture to pay off their vows, everything will be counted under your altar. What do you think?" Shalian received the scroll with both hands and said, "Thank you." This was clearly Junwu helping him, but the Heavenly Emperor made it sound like he was asking Shalian for help. Of course, Shalian could tell, but he couldn't find the right words to express how he felt besides those two. Ling Wen replied, "I'm only responsible for getting things done. If you wish to say thanks, wait until the Heavenly Emperor returns and go thank him directly yourself. By the way, do you need me to lend you any spiritual devices?" "No," Shalian said. "Even if you give me a spiritual device, I won't have any spiritual power once I go down, so I couldn't use it anyway." Having been banished twice, Shalian had lost all of his spiritual powers. Things were fine in the Heavenly Realm. The Heavenly Realm was the place where the divine palaces stood and spiritual chi was abundant, endless, and right at his fingertips for him to use. However, once back in the mortal realm, he was stunted. If he wanted to have a spiritual battle with anyone, he'd have to borrow said power from someone to make do. Quite the inconvenience. Ling Wen pondered for a moment. "Then it's best if we call a few martial officers over to lend you a hand." The martial gods that were currently in office either didn't know him or loathed him. Shalian knew that much at least. Forget about that too. No one will come. Ling Wen had her own considerations, however. "I'll give it a try." It wouldn't matter whether she tried or not, but Shalian neither agreed nor protested and let her go off to try on her own. Thus, Ling Wen entered the communication array and clearly and loudly asked, "Everyone, the Heavenly Emperor has an urgent matter in the north and is in dire need of capable hands. Is there any martial highness who can assign 2 martial officers from their palace?" Just as the words were spoken, Mu Qing's voice popped up airily. "I hear the Heavenly Emperor is not in the north at the moment, so this is probably a call for assistance from His Highness the Crown Prince. Am I right?" Shalian thought to himself, "Are you just lurking inside the communication array at all times of the day?" Ling Wen thought the exact same thing and dearly wanted to slap Mu Qing out of the array for obstructing her work. But still she smiled outwardly. "Xuanzhen, how come I keep seeing you inside the array these days? Seems like you've got free time on your hands lately. Congratulations." Everyone is so catty to each other. Oh my god. Mu Qing replied coolly, "My hand is wounded. I'm currently nursing the injury." Every heavenly official thought to themselves, that hand of yours can chop the mountains and slash the seas without breaking a sweat. What could splitting a bell do to you? Ling Wen had wanted to wait until she had tricked 2 people into volunteering before saying anything at first. Yet not only did Mu Qing figure it out easily, he had to say it out loud too. Now there surely wouldn't be anyone available. As expected, not a single soul responded. But Shalian didn't think anything of it. He returned to her. I told you no one would come. If Xuan Zhen didn't say anything, I would have succeeded, Ling Wen said. Shalian chuckled. He worded it like a Pippa player with half her face covered, and within the fog the flower looks 3 times more beautiful. If others thought it was to do work for the Emperor, of course they would have come. But if they came and discovered they'd be working with me, there would probably be a riot, and how could we cooperate under those conditions? Either way, I'm used to being alone. It's not like I lost any limbs during all these years, so we'll leave it as is. Thanks for all the trouble. I'll be off now. Ling Wen was out of ideas too, so she cupped her hands in salute. All right, wishing everything goes smoothly for your highness down below. May heaven officials give their blessings. No paths are bound, Shalian replied, waved his hand, and left in a dashing manner. Oh my gosh. Yeah, Mu Qing being chronically online and then getting called out for it is hilarious. Everything is a lot more sarcastic than I remember. Nervy says, I'm chronically online too. Yeah, me too. Me too. I love how that just set the scene so beautifully. Oh my gosh. Mu Qing is such a little jerk, eh? You gotta love him though. Officially a loser, but he makes a dashing dramatic exit. Yeah, right? I see Tenny says, I love these heavenly official convos. Yeah, me too. We're getting like, it's so juicy. It's like just a bunch of catty CEOs up in their skyscraper being jerks to everyone. Okay. 3 days later, the mortal realm in the north. There was a tea shop by the side of the major street. Its storefront wasn't big, a small operation, but what was good about it was the scenery. There were mountains and waters, people in the city. It had it all, but not much. Not much, but just right. If one was to have a chance meeting here in this landscape, it would definitely become a beautiful memory. Put a pin in that! The tea master inside the shop was extremely idle. When there weren't any customers, he'd bring a stool out to sit by the entrance to watch the mountains and the waters, the people in the city, quite jolly as he looked on. Today he saw a white-clad cultivator who had come down the road from a distance. The cultivator was travel-worn, as if he had walked for a long time. When the man came close, he brushed past the small shop at first, but suddenly he halted. Then very slowly he backed up. Lifting the tip of his bamboo hat, he looked up, glanced at the stop sign, and smiled. Little Shop of Chance Encounters. What an interesting name. While this man appeared somewhat tired, his expression was a cheerful one, so much so that one watching him couldn't help but lift the corners of his lips too. The man then asked, "Excuse me, is Mount Yujin nearby?" The tea master pointed in a direction for him. "It is indeed around here." The man let out a sigh, managing not to let his entire soul out while he was at it. He thought to himself, "I finally made it." This was indeed Shalian. He's walking around as the cultivator with his little hat. Is the mountain nearby? And inside he's like, "Oh, thank God." When he left the heavenly capital that day, he had originally set the desired landing location in the mortal realm to be somewhere near Mount Yujin. Yet who knew when he left in such a dashing manner and jumped down dashingly that his sleeve would be caught by a dashing cloud? Yes, it was caught by a cloud. He didn't know how his sleeve got caught, but either way, he tumbled across the 1,000,000-meter-high sky, and by the time he tumbled down, he no longer knew where he was. After walking on foot for 3 days, he finally made it to the first intended landing point, and he sighed deeply with emotion. Shalian entered the shop and picked a table next to the window, ordering tea and snacks. After he finally settled, there was suddenly the sound of weeping and gongs being played outside. He gazed toward the main street and saw a group of men and women, both young and old, escorting a bright red marriage sedan as it passed by. The air surrounding this procession was downright odd. At first glance, it seemed like a marriage procession, but upon closer look, there was some solemnity, grief, fury, and terror on those faces. The only emotion missing was joy. It didn't look like they were festive at all, yet they still all wore red with flowers and made an ostentatious show. Such a scene truly was exceedingly peculiar. The tea master raised the copper teapot in his hand high and tipped it to pour tea. He also saw the scene play out, but he only shook his head before moving on. Shalian watched the bizarre procession disappear into the distance, and he grew deep in thought for a moment. Just as he was about to take out the scroll Ling Wen had given him to read it over once more, he suddenly sensed something dazzling flit by. When he looked up, a silver butterfly flew past his eyes. That silver butterfly was glittering and translucent, and as it fluttered through the air, it left a sparkling bright trail in its wake. Shalian reached out towards it in spite of himself. The silver butterfly was incredibly intelligent. Instead of being alarmed by the movement, it stopped on the tip of his finger. Its wings shimmered, beautiful and serene, and beneath the sunlight it felt like the illusion of a dream that would shatter with a single touch. A moment later, it flew away. Shalian waved at it as farewell, and when he turned his head back around, there were 2 more people sitting at his table. At the Chance Encounter Cafe, the fact that Shalian probably wouldn't have been sitting there if he didn't trip on a fucking cloud, the fate of the chance encounter happening there is so auspicious, truly. There's a little picture. Ah. There were 4 sides to this table, and those 2 each took a side, one left, one right. They were both young men of 18 or 19 years of age. The one on the left side was taller, with deep brows and handsome features, and his eyes carried a sort of unbridled wildness. The one on the right was extremely fair, elegant, and poised. His expression was a bit overly distant and cold, making him look as if he was extremely displeased. Actually, neither of them looked pleasant. Shalian blinked. You 2 are... The one on the left replied, Nan Feng. The one on the right said, Fu Yao. I wasn't asking for your names, Shalian thought. Just then, Ling Wen suddenly transmitted a message. Your Highness, there are 2 junior martial officials from the middle court who have volunteered to go assist you. They've already descended to find you and should be there by now. This middle court was naturally the opposite of the upper court. The heavenly officials of the heavenly realm could be crassly divided into 2 groups, those who had ascended and those who hadn't. The upper court consisted of heavenly officials who ascended on their own abilities. There were only about 100 of them in the entire heavenly realm, extremely eminent. As for the ones in the middle court, they were brought up as appointed generals. Strictly speaking, they should be addressed as peer heavenly officials, but when everyone addressed each other, they'd often take out peer in the name. One might ask, if there was an upper court and a middle court, was there a lower court? No. Actually, there had been one when Shalian first ascended. At the time, the division was still upper court and lower court. However, later, everyone discovered a problem. When one was introducing oneself, it sounded really bad to say, I am X from the lower court. With the word lower, it felt like one was lower compared to the others. It must be known that there were definitely geniuses and outstanding figures with impressive spiritual powers among them, and what they were missing was only that one heavenly tribulation before they could become real heavenly officials. And who knew if that day would arrive soon? Thus, it was proposed that one word be changed, and saying, I am X from the middle court, sounded so much better, even though they both meant the same thing. In any case, after it was changed, Shalian couldn't get used to it for the longest time. Shalian stared at these two junior marshal officers, each appearing more upset than the other, not looking at all like they had come voluntarily. What do you guys think about that, about the changing the names thing? Is it just like, oh, rich people and their rich people problems? It's just so petty, like it's such a non-issue. CSDL says, it's so dang accurate to human behavior. MXTX nails bureaucracy perfectly, right? It's just like corporate bullshit. They're busying their time with matters like this, right? He couldn't help but ask, Lingwen, they don't look like they're here to help me work, more like they're here for my good-for-nothing head. I hope they're not here because of your trickery. Unfortunately, what he said didn't seem to be transmitted, and he couldn't hear Lingwen's voice by his ears anymore either. He figured it was because he'd been away from the heavenly capital too far and too long, and his spiritual powers were depleted. Without any choice, Shalian first flashed a smile at the two junior marshal officers, then said, Nanfeng and Fu Yao, was it? Let me first thank you both for volunteering to come help. The two only nodded, giving quite the attitude. It seemed they must have come from the retainment of distinguished martial gods. Shalian told the tea master to bring 2 more cups. Then he raised his own teacup and scraped the tea leaves aside, as he asked casually, Which highness are the 2 of you from? The palace of Nanyang, replied Nanfeng. The palace of Xuanzhen, replied Fu Yao. ... Well, this was certainly horrifying. Shalian gulped down his mouthful of tea. Did your generals tell you to come? The 2 answered in unison. My general didn't know I was coming. Shalian pondered for a moment before asking again. Then, do you know who I am? If these 2 junior marshal officers had come in blind because of Lingwen's deception and helped him, then they would get scolded by their own generals upon their return. It wouldn't be worth it. You're His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, Nanfeng said. You're the justice of the mortal realm, the center of the world, Fu Yao said. Shalian choked for a moment, then asked Nanfeng, uncertain. Did he just roll his eyes? Yes, Nanfeng replied. Tell him to beat it. It wasn't a secret that Nanyang and Xuanzhen didn't get along. When Shalian first heard of this, he wasn't surprised in the least, because Fengxin and Mu Qing hadn't shared any great friendship in the past. What had kept things peaceful was that they were subordinates, so when the Crown Prince said, don't fight, you have to be good friends, everyone held back and didn't flip out. Back then, when they got really upset, they'd stab each other with words at most. But with the way things were now, faking it was no longer necessary. This was also why the 2 heavenly officials, folk believers in the southeast and southwest regarded each other with contempt. Throughout the years, the Palace of Nanyang and the Palace of Xuanzhen had always seen each other as enemies. The 2 before him now were a classic example. Fu Yao sneered. Lingguan Shenzhen said that all willing volunteers are welcome, so on what grounds are you telling me to scram? The word willing, uttered using that expression of his, really wasn't persuasive. Shalian said, Let me just confirm, you 2 really came as willing volunteers. If not, then please don't force yourselves. The 2 answered in unison, I'm willing! Looking at those 2 grim and dispirited faces, Shalian thought inwardly, you guys actually mean I want to kill myself, right? Well, in any case, Shalian continued, let's talk business first. I'm sure you both know what we're doing here in the north, right? So I'm not explaining it from the top. Nope, the 2 said in unison. ... Not having a choice, Shalian took out the scroll. Then I guess I'll start from the very beginning for you 2. It was said that many years ago, the foot of Mount Yujin, there was a couple about to get married. This couple was deeply in love. That groom waited for the marriage procession to arrive, but he waited for a long time and still there was no sign of the bride. Anxious, the groom went to the bride's house, but his father and mother-in-law told him that the bride had long since set out. Both families reported this to the authorities, and they searched all over to no avail. If she was eaten by the beasts of the mountain, then at the very least there'd be a leftover arm or leg. How could she just vanish into thin air? Thus, of course, there was suspicion that the bride wasn't willing to marry, so she colluded with the marriage procession and ran off. Yet who knew that many years later, when another couple was to marry, the same nightmare replayed. Once again, the bride was gone. However, this time, there was something left behind. On a small road, the search party found a foot that hadn't yet been fully eaten. Can you hear the creepy music from the Donghua? Ooh, that's the end of chapter 1. Chapter 2 is called 3 Clowns, Night Discussion on the Palace of Tremendous Masculinity. I think we could probably reread one more chapter. I am just going to... Actually, I have a drink right here. We're good. I just need a moment. They are the 3 clowns, eh? Clown time. MXTX's sense of humor is hilarious. Like, this is the same woman who wrote Scumvillain, which is so funny, but just with even more writing skill, you know? Like, Heaven Official's Blessing, the prose is just so beautiful, and the descriptions and the thought behind every line. There's so much hidden meaning in everything. There's so much weight to all of the things said. It's incredible. Like a truly masterful work. It's awesome. CSCL says, the prose reveals her growth. The sarcasm shows it's still her. Right? Yes, exactly. She must be a really funny person. Caraway says she's achieved peak subtlety while writing excellent slapstick comedy. Yes, yes, totally. Sandy says, I see some remnants from Scumvillain shining through here, and MXTX just improved upon her writing so much. 100%. 100%. It's very impressive. She wrote Scumvillain when she was 17, right? Esper Lady said, I tried to read this on the train for the first time and I literally had to stop because I was laughing so hard. She's so incredible for sure. Yes, right? Oh, it's so funny. It's so funny how lots of people, I think, they get really intimidated by the genre and like the Chinese setting and how it is a lot, you know, to get into. There's a lot of tropes that you have to understand. But once you do get a grasp of everything, you can realize it's not that serious, you know? Very snarky. That's a good word. That's a good word. All right. How's everybody doing? How's Gaga time? Gaga time is great. Gaga time is pretty epic. Oh, Kate, Catland Art, the artist behind the picture that pops up whenever there's a donation, says, do you want to see a sneak peek merch whip I'm working on? Absolutely I do. Which character is it? Loving Gaga time. I'm glad you guys are loving Gaga time. Oh my goodness. Kate just sent me the art. It is from another Danmei. Who can name this Danmei? Oh my god. That is so cute, Kate. You are so good at drawing chibis. That is so cute. Yes, the disabled tyrant's beloved pet fish. We love fish preg time. Live, laugh, gaga. That's actually pretty funny. I'd wear that on a shirt. All right, let's continue. Chapter 2, Three Clowns' Night Discussions of the Palace of Tremendous Masculinity. Ever since then, things had gone out of control. Less than 100 years after that first incident, there had been a total of 17 brides who went missing in the Mount Eugen area. Sometimes there'd be a couple of decades in peace, and sometimes 2 would go missing in the short span of 1 month. A horrific legend quickly spread of a ghost groom who lived on Mount Eugen, and if a woman caught his eye, he would kidnap her on the road and devour the marriage procession. Ordinarily, this affair wouldn't have been reported to the heavens. Although 17 brides had gone missing, there were thousands more who were perfectly fine. Either way, the girls couldn't be found, and they couldn't be protected even if everyone wanted to do so. They could only make do with the status quo. Now there were fewer families willing to marry their daughters into this area, and the locals didn't dare make a fanfare of their weddings. That was all. But it just so happened that the father of the 17th bride was a lord official who doted on his daughter. When he heard of the local legend, he meticulously selected 40 valiant and capable military officials to escort the marriage procession of his daughter. But the daughter was spirited off anyway. The ghost groom had really stirred up the hornet's nest this time. No one this old lord official sought in the mortal realm could do anything about it, so in a fit of outrage he assembled a group of government friends and conducted a wave of crazed religious services. He even followed the guidance of a great master and opened his stores to feed the poor, among other similar deeds. It was a huge uproar that shook the city, until finally this alerted a few heavenly officials above. Without going to such ends, it was practically impossible for the voices of insignificant mortals to reach the ears of gods in heaven. That's the gist of it, Shalian said. Since those 2 still looked very uncooperative, he couldn't tell if they had actually been listening. If they didn't listen, he'd have to tell the story again. Nanfeng looked up, though, and frowned. Are there any similarities between the missing brides? There are those who are poor and those who are rich, those who are beautiful and those who are ugly. There are lawful wives and there are concubines. In short, there's no pattern, Shalian said. We can't determine at all what this ghost groom's preference is. Nanfeng mmm'd and picked up his teacup to take a sip, seeming to be thinking now. Fu Yao, on the other hand, never touched the tea Shalian had pushed in his direction and had been languidly cleaning his fingers with a white handkerchief this entire time. He said coolly as he wiped, "Your Highness, how would you know that it must be a ghost groom? This can't be certain, since no one's ever seen it before. So how can we know if it's male or female, if it's old or young? Aren't you a little too quick to judge?" "Yeah, it could be a lesbian." Shalian grinned. This scroll is a summary provided by a civil official from the palace of Ling Wen. The ghost groom is just the common name for it. However, what you've said makes a lot of sense. They spoke a bit more, and Shalian realized that these 2 junior martial officials' reasoning and logic were quite coherent. While they didn't appear very friendly, they weren't muddled at all while discussing important matters. Shalian felt relieved. Looking out the window, the hour was getting late, so the 3 left the small shop for the time being. Shalian put on his bamboo hat and walked for a bit before abruptly realizing the 2 behind him weren't following, so he looked back, puzzled. Turned out the other 2 were also watching him in equal bemusement. Nanfeng asked, "Where are you going?" "To find some place to settle for the night," Shalian replied. "Fu Yao, why are you rolling your eyes again?" Nanfeng continued his questions, still puzzled. "Then why are you heading to the wild bushes?" Shalian often camped out in the wild and slept on the streets, and he could lay out a cloth on the ground and spend the night just like that. So naturally, he was ready to find some cave to start a campfire in, as he'd always done. But it was with Nanfeng's reminder that he suddenly realized that Nanfeng and Fu Yao were both martial officials under a martial god. If there were any Nanyang temples or Xuanzhen temples around, then they could enter directly. So what need was there to sleep out in the wild? A short while later, the three found a broken-down 2D shrine in an incredibly inconspicuous little corner that worshipped a round, small stone lord of the soil and ground. A Tudigong is a Taoist tutelary deity, a type of minor god that acts as a patron or protector of a specific location, group of people, or thing. With incense residue and shattered lanterns, it looked exceedingly desolate. Shalian called out a few times. This lord of the soil and ground hadn't been worshipped or called by anyone for years, so when he suddenly heard the call, he snapped open his eyes and saw 3 people standing before his shrine. The 2 on the left and right, respectively, were both enveloped in a sheen of spiritual light abundant like some nouveau rich, their faces barely visible. The deity jumped in alarm. His voice trembled. "Do the 3 heavenly officials have anything to command of this humble one?" Sam the Pancake, thank you for donating. Today's Barnes & Noble haul: Green Yuri, Legend of Exorcism, Guardian Volume 3, Dinghai Fusheng Records, Peerless Volume 1, and an ABO manga and bookmarks. Wow, that is an incredible haul. Thank you for telling me about that. It's inspiring me to go to the bookstore. Thank you so much for donating. Hope you have fun with all your new books. Shalian inclined his head. "No commands. I just wanted to ask if there are any local temples that worship either General Nanyang or General Xuanzhen." The Lord of Soil and Ground didn't dare to affront him and replied, Then in a quick divination, with the pinch of his fingers, he answered, "There's a local town temple about 2.5 kilometers from here, and the one worshipped is the General Nanyang." Shalian put his hands together in prayer. "Many thanks." However, that Lord of Soil and Ground was blinded by the 2 balls of spiritual power on both sides of Shalian, so he quickly vanished. Shalian fumbled out a few coins and placed them in front of the altar shrine, and when he saw there were fallen remnants of burned incense sticks to the ground, he picked them up and relit them. Throughout the entire thing, Fuyao was rolling his eyes so hard that Shalian almost wanted to ask if his eyes were tired. About 2.5 kilometers later, they indeed spotted a local town temple standing fiery red by the roadside. While the temple was small, it had everything. People were going in and out, extraordinarily lively. The 3 concealed their forms and entered the temple. The one worshipped within the hall was a clay divine statue of the martial god Nanyang, bedecked in armor with a bow in hand. When Shalian saw this divine statue, he hummed inwardly. In a small temple in the countryside, the craft and painting of divine statues could be expected to be rough, but on the whole, this statue was still significantly different from Shalian's own impression of Feng Xin. However, distorted divine statues were something that every heavenly official had long since gotten used to. Never mind that their own mothers wouldn't recognize them sometimes. There were heavenly officials who didn't even recognize themselves when they saw their own statues. After all, they weren't many artisan masters who had actually seen the real forms of the heavenly officials, so the statues were either distorted beautifully or hideously. One could only rely on the posture, spiritual apparatus, attire, and crown to determine which heavenly official it was. Usually, the more affluent the area, the more the divine statue would please the heavenly official. The more impoverished a place, the worse the taste of the craftsmanship, and the more tragic the sculpture became. To speak of the present, there was only General Xuanzhen, whose divine statues were in a better situation. Why? Because for everyone else, if their statues were ugly, then whatever leave it be. But when Mu Qing saw his statues had been hideously sculpted, he would either secretly destroy them and make people start over, or appear in dreams to express his displeasure. I cannot believe that. Mu Qing is going in people's dreams to be like, "Look how handsome I am. Your sculpture of me is so ugly." This went on for a long time until the grand believers all learned that they had to find an artisan master who could sculpt beautifully. All the temples of Xuanzhen were exactly the same as their general, particular and tasteful. But after Fuyao entered the temple of Nanyang, for 2 whole hours he thoroughly criticized the statue of Nanyang from head to toe, how the design was deformed, the colors tacky, the craftsmanship crude, the taste bizarre. Shalian watched as the blue veins on Nanfeng's forehead slowly popped out and thought that he best quickly find another topic of conversation. It just so happened that there was a girl who entered to pray, and she very sincerely knelt. Shalian said warmly, "Speaking of, Nanyang Xuanzhen's main domain is the southeast. I never imagined you guys would have such a following in the north, too." When people constructed temples, they were imitating the divine palaces of the heavenly realm, and divine statues were reflections of the heavenly officials' venerable selves. Temples attracted worship and were where believers gathered, becoming an important source of spiritual power for heavenly officials. And due to various reasons, such as geography, history, and customs, people of just different regions often worship different gods. A heavenly official's spiritual power would be maximized on their own turf, and this was the main advantage of having a domain. Only to a heavenly official like the heavenly emperor, who had believers from all over the world and possessed temples everywhere, was the notion of a main domain meaningless. It was a good thing that the holy temple of Nanfeng's own general was so popular even outside his main domain. He should have been proud, but judging by his expression, this was very much not the case. On the outside, Fu Yao gave a light smirk. Yes, he's deeply loved," Shalian said, "but I have a question that I don't know if..." "If you're going to say you don't know if it's appropriate, then don't say anything," Nanfeng interrupted. "No, I was going to say, don't know if anyone has the answer," Shalian thought. San the Pancake, thank you for donating again. Ordered Fish Volume 2 and Arha Volume 2. Oh, very nice. I hope you can get those soon then. That's exciting. What a Danmei haul. Thank you again for donating, Sam the Pancake. But he had a feeling that it'd be bad if he said it, so in the end, he decided to change the subject again. Yet unexpectedly, Fu Yao languidly said, "I know what you want to ask. You must be wondering why there are so many female believers coming to worship." That was indeed the question Shalian had in mind. There had always been fewer female believers than male in the martial god's stream. Only Shalian himself was an exception, 800 years ago. However, the reason for this exception was very simple, and it was also only 2 words. Good looking. He knew very well that it wasn't because he was distinguished or because he had extraordinary spiritual powers. It was merely due to the fact that his divine statue was good looking, and his palace temples were handsome too. Practically all of his palace temples were constructed by the royal family, and the highest skilled experts and artisans of the kingdom were summoned to sculpt the divine statues exactly in accordance with his face. Besides, because of that phrase, body in abyss, heart in paradise, the artisans liked adding flowers to his divine statue and planting seeds of flowering trees at his temples. Thus, at the time, he had another title, the flower-crowned martial god. The lady believers liked that his divine statues were good-looking and that his palace temples were filled with flowers, and due to that alone, they were willing to casually enter to pray. The usual martial gods were too heavy in killing aura and often had their faces sculpted to be serious, savage, and cold. So when lady believers saw, they would rather pray to the bodhisattvas instead. While this statue of Nanyang had none of the killing aura, it was far from good looking, and yet there still seemed to be more female believers praying than male. Nanfeng obviously didn't want to answer this question either, which was making Shalian even more curious. It just so happened that right then, the girl finished her worship. She rose to her feet to reach for the incense, then spun around. While she was turned away, Shalian nudged the other 2. They were already very annoyed, and with this nudge they looked, and whoosh! Both their faces dropped. "Too ugly!" Fu Yao exclaimed. Shalian choked for a moment, then chided, "Fu Yao, you can't talk about girls like that." If he had to be honest, what Fu Yao said was true. The girl's face was incomparably flat, looking exactly like someone had leveled it with a slap. It would almost be an insult to say her features were plain. If they must be described, then only crooked nose and slanted eyes could be used. Jesus! Oh my god, Shalian's like, well, he's not fucking wrong. But you can't say that. Oh my god. However, Shalian didn't register whether she was beautiful or ugly at all. The main thing was, when she spun around, there was an enormous tear on the back of her skirt, and he really couldn't pretend he didn't see it. Fu Yao was startled at first, but he quickly regained himself. The popped veins on the corner of Nanfeng's forehead also instantly vanished. Seeing his face change color so drastically, Shalian quickly soothed. Don't be nervous, don't be nervous. The girl took incense and knelt down anew, and said as she prayed, May General Nanyang give his blessings. This believer Xiao Ying's prays for the ghost groom to be captured soon, so no other innocents will be harmed by him. She was sincere and devout in her prayers, and didn't sense anything peculiar going on behind her at all, nor was she aware that there were 3 men crouching next to the foot of the divine statue she was praying to. Shalian fretted. What do? We can't let her walk out like this. Everyone on her way home will see. Besides, judging by that tear on the back of her skirt, it was obvious someone had intentionally ripped it with a sharp object. She probably wouldn't just be seen by a crowd of onlookers. She would also be publicly laughed at, and that would truly be considerable humiliation. Fu Yao was unconcerned. Don't ask me. The one she's praying to isn't my General Xuanzhen. Do not look at what is improper. I saw nothing. He's such a little bitch. Oh my god. Meanwhile, blood was draining from Nanfeng's handsome face. He only knew to wave, not talk. A perfectly fine, unbridled, strapping young man was forcibly rendered mute, completely hopeless. And so Shalian had no choice but to take action himself, taking off his outer robe and throwing it down below. The outer robe flapped in the air for a moment and drifted down onto the body of that girl, blocking the very inelegant tear on the back of her skirt. The 3 sighed a breath in unison. However, that breeze was strange, and it startled the girl. She looked around, took off the robe, and hesitated briefly before she placed it onto the altar. She was completely unaware, and after striking the incense in the burner, she made her way out. If they let her out to walk around like that, the little maiden would probably not have the face to look at anyone ever again. The 2 on Shalian's right and left were either frozen or frozen, completely useless, however you wanted them. And he sighed. Nanfeng and Fu Yao felt the space beside their bodies empty suddenly. Shalian had already taken form and jumped down. The lamplight inside the temple was dim, and a small gust rose from his leap, causing the firelight to flicker. The girl Xiao Ying only saw a blur before a man suddenly emerged from the darkness, reaching out to her with his upper body bare. And she was scared out of her wits right then and there. Oh my god, just the hijinks of these 3 trying to do anything. As expected, she screamed. Just when Shalian was about to speak, the girl's slap already struck out in a flash, and she yelled, "Harassment!" Thwack! And Shalian was slapped just like that. The slap was clear and crisp, and the 2 crouching on top of the altar both felt the side of their faces twitch at the same time. Shalian wasn't mad at the strike, however, and only forcefully stuffed the outer robe into her arms, swiftly whispering something. The girl was greatly alarmed, felt her behind, and suddenly flushed red in the face. Tears welled up in her eyes. Who knew whether it was in anger or indignation? She clutched the outer robe Shalian gave her and dashed out, covering her face, leaving Shalian standing there, half bare. With the girl gone, the temple was now deserted. A cool breeze wafted through the hall, and it was suddenly a little chilly. He rubbed his cheek, and with that red hand mark on half his face, he turned to the other 2. All right, everything's resolved. Nanfeng pointed at him. Did you tear your wounds? Shalian looked down and oh'd. After undressing, what was revealed was a body smooth and fair like jade, except his chest was heavily wrapped in layers after layer of white cloth, firmly bound. Even his neck and wrists were wrapped in bandages. Innumerable small cuts crawled out from the edges of the white bandages, truly a startling sight. He figured his sprained neck was pretty much recovered by now, so Shalian started unbinding his bandages. Fu Yao glanced at him, then questioned, "Who was it?" "What?" Shalian asked. "Who fought you?" Fu Yao demanded. "Fought," Shalian confessed. "No one." "Then all those injuries on your body?" Nanfeng was hesitant. Shalian looked at them blankly. "I fell on my own." dot, dot, dot. Those were indeed the injuries from when he tumbled down from heaven 3 days ago. If it were from a fight with another person, then he actually might not have been hurt so badly. Fu Yao grumbled something, but it wasn't clear. Either way, it definitely wasn't praising him for his fortitude, so Shalian didn't bother to ask, focusing only on removing the heavy layer of bandages from his neck. The next second, Nanfeng and Fu Yao's gazes hardened as their eyes fell on his throat. A black collar encircled his snow-white neck. Sensing their stare, Shalian gave a light smile and turned around. First time seeing a real cursed shackle? Cursed shackle, like its name implied. It was a shackle formed by a particular curse. Heavenly officials who were banished from heaven would have the mark of sin, forged by the wrath of heaven, branded onto their bodies. This brand formed a fetter that sealed spiritual powers away, never to be freed. Just like a brand on the face or chains shackling hands and feet, this was a form of punishment and a warning. It was both terrifying and humiliating. As the laughingstock of the 3 realms, who was banished twice, of course Shalian had a cursed shackle on his body. It was impossible for those 2 junior martial officials to not have heard of this before, but there was still a little difference between having heard and seeing it personally. Thus, Shalian could understand why they would react the way they did. He figured this might be making the 2 junior officials wary and uncomfortable. After all, it wasn't like those shackles were a good thing. At first, he used the excuse of going out to search for clothes in order to get a chance to step outside, but he was stopped in his tracks by Fu Yao's eye roll and his comment. "It'd be incredibly indecent for you to go out in the street looking like that." In the end, it was thanks to Nanfeng, who tossed him a temple attendant's robes that he grabbed from the back of the building, that Shalian was able to stop being so indecent. However, even after they'd settled back down, it felt like the incident earlier had caused the mood to become somewhat awkward, and so Shalian took out the scroll given by the palace of Lingwen. Man, that is awkward. Oh. It's like seeing such like a terrible scar on his body, like, oh man. All the complicated feelings that arise from that, you know? He said, "Do you guys want to take another look at this?" Nanfeng raised his eyes and gave him a look. "I've looked through it already. I think he's the one who needs to take a better look at it." "What do you mean I'm the one who needs to take a better look at it?" Fu Yao countered. "That scroll isn't detailed at all, completely worthless, and you think it's worth another look?" Hearing him say the scroll was worthless, Shalian couldn't help but feel a little sad for the ashen-faced junior civil officials at the palace of Lingwen who put this together. Fu Yao then continued. "Oh yeah? Where were we? The Temple of Nanyang. Why does Nanyang have so many female believers, right?" All right. Shalian put the scroll away and rubbed his pulsing forehead. He understood now. No one would be able to look through it tonight. If they weren't going to focus on real business, then why not see what the side business was all about? Turned out, other than the Royal Highness, who spent centuries collecting scraps in the mortal realm, every deity knew that there was a period of time when Nanyang Shenzhen, Fengxin, was called Zhuyang Shenzhen. The man himself deeply detested this title, and everyone only had one word for his experience: injustice. The original correct writing used the character Zhuyang, which meant perfect sun. The incident that warped them happened many years ago. During that time, a king was constructing a great number of temples and palaces. To demonstrate his faith and sincerity, he personally drafted the titles for every temple or palace establishment plaque. But when it came to the palace of Zhuyang, for some reason he used the character for Zhuyang that meant tremendous masculinity. This gave the officials responsible for the construction much grief. They just couldn't figure out whether His Majesty changed it intentionally or if it was an accident. If it was intentional, why wasn't there a clear decree that indicated, yes, this is what we want to change it to? If it wasn't intentional, why would their king commit to such a low-level mistake? It wasn't like they could say, "Your Majesty, you're wrong." Who knew if His Majesty would mistake them for being sarcastic about his carelessness? That they were hinting that his knowledge was shallow, that his heart was insincere. This was His Majesty's royal writing. Were they going to trash it if they weren't going to use it? Divine beings had hearts most difficult to discern, and the officials were in pure agony. After much deliberation, instead of causing grief for His Majesty, they thought they might as well cause grief for Zhuyang Zhuanzhen. It had to be said that they made the right decision. When the king discovered that perfect sun had become tremendous masculinity, he didn't make any statements, but instead invited a bunch of scholars to scour the ancient texts with great vigor to find countless minuscule reasons and compose many essays to painstakingly prove that it shouldn't have been tremendous masculinity in the first place, and that perfect sun was wrong. Sorry, that it should have been tremendous masculinity in the first place, and that perfect sun was wrong. In any case, every palace of perfect sun in the country became a palace of tremendous masculinity overnight. Okay, so that's another example of like someone in power makes a mistake and then is like, I didn't make the mistake, all of you guys are wrong. And because he was in power, he was able to make the changes to keep his answer the right answer, right? So anyways, that's how he became Dick Yang. Fengxian, whose divine title changed so randomly, didn't find this out until decades later. He basically had never bothered to look closely at the signs of his own temples, but one day he suddenly felt rather baffled. Why were there so many women coming to pray in his temples, each of them flushed with shyness on their cheeks? And what in the world were they praying for when offering incense? After he figured it out, he charged up to the peak of the 9th sky and shouted his curses to the scorching sun in the vast skies. He shocked every heavily official. After he was done cursing, there was nothing he could do, so he could only relent. It wasn't like he could pick on those women who were praying so sincerely, so he forced himself to listen for many years. It wasn't until a decent ruler came along who thought tremendous masculinity was horribly obscene that it was changed to Nanyang for Southern Sun. Nonetheless, no one forgot what else he could grant beyond his duties as a martial god. However, everyone also upheld an unspoken rule: never call him by that name. At the same time, they also upheld a general consensus how to evaluate this Nanyang Zhenjun with one word: good. Don't let him open his mouth to yell at people, and everything should be good. Nanfeng's face was already as dark as the bottom of an aged wok, yet Fu Yao was suddenly feeling poetic, and he recited demurely: friend of women, a trusty companion, ask for a son, most powerful is he. The secret formula to bolster masculinity, a son in your prayers, Nanyang delivers. Ah ha 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 ha! Shailan very kindly held back his laugh, leaving a bit of face for Nanyang in front of his divine statue. Nanfeng, however, was outraged. Don't you act all sarcastic here. If you're really that bored, go sweep the floor. The moment those words were spat, Fu Yao's face also darkened to the color of a pot bottom. If the palace of Nanyang couldn't stand to hear the words tremendous masculinity, then the palace of Xuanzhen couldn't stand to hear people bring up the term sweep. This was because when Mu Qing was still an errand boy at the Royal Holy Temple, all he did was serve tea, deliver water, sweep, and change the sheets for Shailan at the palace of the Crown Prince. One day, Shailan saw him silently reciting training incantations while sweeping. He was thus moved by his spirit for learning and hard work under such harsh and difficult circumstances, and persuaded the preceptor to take him in as a disciple. How to best describe this incident? It could be considered grand or insignificant. It could be humiliating or a compliment. It depended entirely on the individual in question. Obviously, the individual in question had taken it as the humiliation of his life, since Mu Qing and every martial warrior under his command would flip out whenever they heard the word sweep. Sure enough, Fu Yao steadied himself, then after throwing a look at Shailan, who was waving his hand, appearing fully innocent, he sneered. Listening to you, those who don't know would think your palace of Nanyang sides with the palace of the Crown Prince and fights hard to right the injustices against him. Nanfeng sneered too. Your general certainly is the ungrateful one that bites the hand that feeds him. What more can I say? Shailan was just trying to intercept when Fu Yao ah-ha-ha'd and said, the kettle is calling the pot black. What right do you have to point fingers? ... Listening to them turn him into the mallet with which they took turns to beat the heavenly official standing right up there on the altar, Shailan finally couldn't take it any longer. Wait, hold up, stop! Of course no one paid him any mind, and they even started throwing fists. Who knew who threw the first punch? But either way, the altar was split in half just like that, and platters of fruit rolled all over the ground. Seeing how there was no way he could stop this fight anymore, Shalian sat himself in a corner and heaved a sigh. What a sin. Then he picked up a small steamed bun that had rolled to his feet. He dusted off its skin and was about to bite down when Nanfeng saw him from the corner of his eye and immediately slapped it away. Don't eat that! Fu Yao stopped too and appeared shaken and disgusted. How can you eat it when it's rolled in the dirt? Shalian used this chance to raise his hand. Stop, stop, stop. I have something to say. He separated the two and said, looking amicable, First, that highness the crown prince you two speak of happens to be me. This highness hasn't even said anything, so don't sling me around like a weapon to attack each other. He paused for a moment, then added, I don't think your generals would ever behave like this. If you two act so indecorously, you'll ruin their reputations. When those words were spoken, the faces of the other two changed to something indiscernible. Shalian continued, Second, you two are here to help me, right? So, is it you who listens to me, or is it me who listens to you? It was a moment before the two replied, We listen to you. While their faces looked like they were saying, Listen to you, dream on, Shalian was already very satisfied. Then, pah! He put his hands together in prayer. Good. Now, thirdly, the most important thing. If you must throw something, then please throw me instead of food. Nanfeng finally pried away the steamed bun that Shalian had clutched in his grip, hoping for a chance to eat it. He said, looking like he couldn't take it anymore, If it's fallen to the ground, don't eat it. I love how he's just like, ah. It's like Kictor stopping Stitch from picking up feathers. Listen, bird flu is a real concern. The next day, back at the little shop of chance encounters, the tea master was once again by the entrance, relaxing with his leg up, when he saw the three approaching from a distance. The cultivator in light, simple white robes with a bamboo hat hung on his back led the way, while the two tall, black-clad youths trailed behind him. That cultivator strolled up languidly with crossed arms, and he spoke equally languidly, sounding more idle than the old man. Shopkeeper, 3 cups of tea, please. The tea master smiled. Coming. Then he thought to himself, Those 3 silly guys are here again. What a shame. Each looks sightlier than the other, but each of their brains is more damaged than the next. What God, what ghosts, what heaven? When you're crazy, what good is a decent face? Oh my God, even he's like slandering them. That's so funny. Those boys sure are pretty, but they are dumb. Shalian still picked the spot next to the window, and after they settled, Nanfeng spoke up. Why do we have to come here to discuss things? You sure there won't be people listening in? Shalian replied warmly. It's fine. Even if people hear us, they won't care. They'll only think we're insane. ... In order to avoid the 3 of us continuing to waste each other's time like this, let's lay it all out, Shalian said. Now that we've calmed down overnight, have you guys thought of any ideas? Fu Yao's eyes flashed, and he said coldly, Kill it! No shit, Nanfeng said. Nanfeng, don't be so rude. Fu Yao didn't say anything wrong, Shalian said. The way to solve this problem is to kill this creature, but the bigger issue is, where do we go? What are we killing? How do we kill it? I suggest... At that moment, the sound of gongs and drums came from the main street, and the 3 looked out the window. It was that bleak and tragic wedding procession again. This party of men and horses blew their instruments to the utmost, hollering and cheering as if they were afraid people couldn't hear what they were about. Nanfeng frowned. Isn't it said that the people around Mount Yujin don't make spectacles of these rituals anymore? This procession consisted of large, strong, buff men. Their expressions and muscles were both taut, and cold sweat oozed from their foreheads. It was like they weren't carrying a festive and cheery bridal sedan, but rather a guillotine that ended their lives early. It made one wonder what sort of person was seated in that sedan. After hesitating for a moment, just as Shalian was thinking of going to check things out, a sinister wind blew past, raising one of the curtains on the side of the sedan. The figure behind the curtain was lying slumped in a very strange position inside. Her head was bent in an awkward angle, and underneath the bridal veil there were bright red lips, curled in an overly exaggerated smile. The sedan tipped and the covering fell, exposing a pair of bulging eyes staring their way. From the looks of it, this was clearly a woman who'd had her neck wrung and who was now laughing at them uproariously but soundlessly. Perhaps it was because the sedan carriers were shaking too hard, but that bridal sedan wasn't steady in the least, so the woman's head bounced along with the bumps. They bumped, and thud! The head fell off and rolled onto the street. The headless body sitting inside the sedan also fell forward with a bang, and then the whole person crashed out of the sedan. That's the end of chapter 2. Oh, brother. What's gonna happen? Oh my gosh. I just saw Leo say Shaelian is so much more sassier than I expected, right? He is very sassy. He is sarcastic and he's so funny. He's a little savage, you know? He's very confident. It's like he knows what he's about. He's been around for so many years and he's a little sassy, right? Enervi says, there's many more things different here than the Donghua. Yeah, right? It's fun to notice the differences. I understand the changes they had to make, but there's nothing like the original book. So good. Getting to hear what's in his head is really, really fun, for sure. Orion's Belt says, just these few chapters have reminded me how much I love Shaelian. He's very kind, but also not putting up with any bullshit. Right? Absolutely. Absolutely. Kate says these chapters kind of making me want to read some Funglian tonight. If it was another story, the history of the bodyguard he's had since he was 14 and then they had a terrible falling out, is quite dramatic. CSCL says, I love getting to ask questions already. Yes! Is anybody confused about anything? Any questions that you want to clear up with these first few chapters in the prologue? The Wizard of Moss says, the manhwa is so much shorter too. I miss the details. Yeah. You get the beautiful art, get beautiful voice acting, but you don't get every little thought. I forgot just how mean Fu Yao is. It's quite out there. I see Tenny says, I can't wait to re-enjoy the Tgcf book again with your reading, as I had only previously read fan TLs. I loved your previous reading of Scum Villain. It gave me a whole new perspective on Bing Cho relationship. Oh, that's wonderful. I'm really glad to hear that. That's awesome. I'm so excited that I get to read these with you guys. It's so fun doing it live and getting to hear everybody's reactions too. Brayley, thank you so much for donating. Brayley, if anybody does not know, is another incredible artist here. Incredible Hualian artist. Loving the TGCF read-through. I would love to send you my not safe for work art from Patreon because you've been so supportive. Only if you're interested, though. I would love to see that. Oh my goodness. How lucky am I? And Brayley, feel free to promote your Patreon. If you can't send the link, but write what your Patreon name is or any social medias. Anyone who's an artist, I absolutely you gotta promote yourself or no one's gonna find your stuff. And I will never be upset over artists being like, hey, I am an artist and this is my art account or whatever. So know that I'm always very happy to support you guys because you guys are the fucking backbones of a fandom. What is a fandom without fan art? So thank you, Brayley. I will forever be so supportive of you. Sienna, thank you for donating. Oh my goodness, thank you so much. That's really, really kind of you. Sienna says, y'all, I have had an ordeal the past 2 days. Yesterday, flight home, turbulence from hell, people being sick, couldn't safely land the plane, had to divert to Montreal from Toronto, and flight home delayed today for 6 hours. Oh shit, are you still in the airport? Oh my god, dude, that's really, really scary. I hate all of that. I actually had a nightmare last night about being in an airport. So maybe you were in my brain. Damn, I hope that you get home safe. I am sorry that you had to endure all of that. That is absolutely awful. So nothing more stressful than trying to get on the proper planes and stuff. Mad Kitty says, I'm going to meet Howard Wong in April at my first con. I'm beyond excited. That is wonderful. Oh my gosh, he is so, so nice. He is probably one of the best celebrities I've ever met. Sienna says, I am on my way home. I landed 2 hours ago. Oh, that's good to hear. What's Visual J's question? Also, Braylee, where did you send me where are you going to send me the picture? Email? kictercosplay@gmail.com? CSCL, the multiple names Mooching and Function have can get confusing, so hoping to keep those straight. Yeah, Nan Fung goes with Function. Fu Yao goes with Mooching. Fu Yao just sounds like a bitchier name to me. And Mooching's the bitch. Swashbuck says, are you doing a full read through? Yep, we sure are. This is the first installment. So we got the prologue and the first 2 chapters done today. And we're going to do another one tomorrow. Braylee says, does Insta work? Yes. I don't know if you can get in trouble by doing not safe for work pictures on Instagram DMs. But if you're not worried about it. Oh, I see it. Oh, I see it. Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay, I'm gonna zoom in a little bit so you guys can see just a little bit. Oh my god, that Braylee. That is some Hualian goodness. Oh, we got some Wongshin up in here. Oh my god. Oh my god. And the this last one. Welcome home, Gaga. That is quite the preview. Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay. Yo, you guys gotta see this. This is here, I'll just post the link. Patreon. Here we go. If you would like to see the full images from that. Hey, it's paid content. You guys gotta support Braylee if you want to see it. I posted her link right there. Okay, Miss Rosie says, hey, Kicter, happy almost New Year. Happy New Year, Miss Rosie. Can I get some good vibes to get off this plane within the next half an hour? It's already been 40 minutes. Oh my god, everyone's stuck on the planes. You will get off the plane soon. I'm sending you all my good vibes. Oh, that is awful, though. I hope that you get off soon. Oh my goodness. Okay, wait, I'm trying to find what Jay's question was. Could somebody repost it, maybe? I can't see it. It was about the rules regarding heavenly tribulations, how ascension works. Yeah. Well, it seems like if you're very good at something, the very best, or you cultivate hundreds of years, then you can do a heavenly tribulation, which is like a really, 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 really hard task or adventure. And if you pass it, then you can ascend. And when you ascend, you can also bring some buddies up with you. And those people are not gods. They go to the middle court. And those people will likely ascend as well eventually. And in order to ascend, you have to go through your heavenly tribulation, right? If are they preordained or pre-planned? I'm like, does Junwoo like pick all of them? You win the lottery and you get to bring some Nepo babies with you. Pre-planned if Junwoo likes you. Well, like Shiwudu has to go through another one, right? So is it like you keep getting checked every now and then if you're like worthy enough to be a god? You can go through multiple to get stronger. Yeah. I'm like, what was the heavenly tribulation that Shi Qingxuan had to go through? Because it was probably absolutely bullshit. CC Newbie, thank you for donating. I'm at work and forgot my headphones, so I just read along with the chat today. I'll watch the stream at home later. LOL. Oh my gosh. Nice. Well, I hope you can enjoy it afterwards. He was getting extra power. Yeah, he got stronger. It was pouring the wine. Was pouring the wine that was the tribulation? Was stopping the thief by just pouring wine? Like, Shiwudu's like battling beasts in the water and shit, and his is like, I stopped the That was actually the tribulation. That's so funny. Damn. I'm very excited to read the Shi Qingxuan parts. I already have such a deeper love for Mu Qing and Fengxian already, just from rereading the text. Who chooses the test? I'm pretty sure it's gotta be Junwoo, because there's only like 100 gods. It's not like there's too many people to keep track of, right? He's got 100 employees. I think you know why and who gave him a lame test. Yeah. Did Shi Qingxuan actually ascend because of wine? Well, and also your ascension does have to do with like your hard work, but also luck. Like luck/fate is something involved with this, right? And the man behind the scenes. Okay. So, Meridia says, I don't think Junwoo chooses, it comes from the universe. Maybe we will learn. Maybe we will not learn. Before we go, I just want to quickly promote my shop at Kickter.com. If you guys would like to get any Danmei merch, I have, let me show you. Boop, boop, doo, doo. My shop at Kickter.com, some of the stuff that we have. We have our Danmei Book Club tote bag. It can hold many, many books, I can assure you. Stitch and I actually tested how many books it could hold. It was a shocking amount. We've got this. We've got our Danmei Book Club mug. And also, you can get it in jumbo size. And we have the shirts in 2 different flavors, in the color and the light color. We also have this reference, Tgcf, the Tears of 33 Heavenly Officials. You can get it in jumbo wumbo size, actually. Huge cup for all of the tiers. And, of course, this little Red String of Fate mug. And we also have this on the shirt, and which is really cool is that Howard, Shalian's voice actor, actually bought this shirt. I thought that was so cool, and he wears it to conventions sometimes. And we also have it as a sticker. And then we've got this one, which is Jung Chung trying to do a kickflip on a sword and failing. And just a Kickter sticker. So I just wanted to do a little promo for my shop. Probably be talking about my shop a little bit more. And I have been encouraged as well because I have a YouTube partner guy that he came and had a meeting with me because I guess my channel is doing pretty good. For people in Vancouver, at least. And he said that I need to tell people to subscribe more. So, if you guys are not subscribed and you would like to watch some more TGCF content, be sure to hit subscribe and click like on the stream, as that will help me in the long run as well. So, thank you guys so much for coming to the first live read through for TGCF, and we will pick up right where we left off tomorrow at the same time at 5 p.m. So it won't be too long until I see you again. Cats Cow says, and hit that bell. Smash like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. If you have any questions, you can post them tomorrow and we can chat, and it'll be great. Awesome. Okay, I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.